The 4th of August 2025. It's a brand new week, but key news and current affairs developments have continued to shape, reshape, and carve your world. So come, let's huddle together for the next 3 hours so we can inform, engage each other, as well as sharpen each other's perspectives on the key issues of the day. It's the Monday edition of the Morning Brief. Let's get it started. Good morning and welcome to it. Here's some of what we will tell you over the next 3 hours. Migration and illegal immigration, the discontent that it has spurred in our society, as well as some of its subtle diplomatic dimensions. All of that will be something of a theme that we will pick up on this morning during the show today. Two main stories really drive that focus and that theme that we've got on the show about migration, illegal immigration, as well as the diplomatic dimensions of it. The first story has to do with the Lesotho government. It has its intention to send a delegation to come and engage with the South African government on key issues, and those issues do include immigration as well as healthcare. Lesotho Communications Minister Ntati Morosi raising concerns over what she describes as quote-unquote xenophobic-like treatment of Basotho citizens in South Africa. You'll know that her comments, the background for it all, they come in the wake of intensifying anti-illegal immigration protests by groups like Operation Dudula and the March and March movement, which you have seen over the last while, which have included in many instances the blockading of foreign nationals from accessing public healthcare facilities. So at the top of 7 a.m. we'll speak to Professor Lauren Landau, who is senior researcher at the Wits University's African Center for Migration and Society, who will give us a perspective on that. The second story driving what I'm calling a bit of a focus and a theme around migration has to do with this. You will have seen the reports coming through late on Friday from Mpumalanga police confirming that they'd arrested about 1,000 illegal miners at a mine in Barberton in Mpumalanga on Friday. They were nabbed during Operation Vala Umgodi, which is a police operation that is undertaken jointly with elements from the South African National Defence Force, and its aim really is curbing the prevalent illegal mining activities in the country. So we're told that a large number of the people that were arrested out at that mine in Barberton are also undocumented immigrants. And so we'll get a perspective from David van Wyk, who is a lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation. And that conversation will be coming up at about 7:15, so in the second hour of the show. So that is the migration theme that we will touch upon on the show today. But talking about other stories that we'll be covering today, at what age should children be allowed to own and spend copious amounts of time on gadgets like smartphones and tablets? It's a question that vexes many parents, as you can imagine. It's especially pertinent now because of a comprehensive international study that has recently been published in the Journal of Human Development and Capabilities. And that study shows that children who received access to smartphones before the age of 13 were significantly more likely to experience mental health challenges in early adulthood. And those challenges including anxiety, depression, emotional instability, aggression, and social withdrawal. So the study is based on analysis of about more than 100,000 individuals in more than 160 countries. In its wake, there's a call by Smartphone Free Childhood South Africa, SFCSA, Smartphone Free Childhood South Africa, which is a parent-led initiative, and they're calling for a more cautious and reflective and more intentional approach to managing digital access for our children. So we'll have that conversation at about 7:20 this morning, but I'm also keen to hear from you if you are a parent. How are you handling this particular issue? It is a difficult one, I can tell you, as a parent myself. Are you allowed to take pictures and record video of police officers in the course and scope of undertaking their duties, especially when you encounter them, sometimes, for instance, if they stop you at a roadblock? It's a question that has continued to vex many people encountering police officers on a daily basis. We've seen instances where this has led to an escalation of confrontations between officers and civilians. Well, there's a key decision that has come out from the High Court in Johannesburg, which goes some way in answering that question. And it's answered it in the affirmative. Civilians are absolutely allowed to ask questions of and also to record videos of police officers without fearing arrest. I'll tell you about it at about 10 to 7 this morning. It all revolves around a lawyer who basically asked some questions about a roadblock that was happening just outside his house, and started recording video. And without much being said, police officers said, "We've seen enough. We are taking you into custody." Well, that ended badly in terms of the legal action that ensued, which has now led to this decision. We'll talk to Lesiba Tobagale of the South African Police Union at about 10 to 7 this morning. The full bench of the Morning Brief team is ready, able and willing to serve you with your essential updates throughout the morning. And Musa is at the news desk. Rob Byrne has got your traffic updates. Zaikan is on your sport. Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief. Dowling Lechela will keep you posted on all things economy, business and the markets. And of course, Mo Africa, Sipho Mantula with your Africa update at about 20 to 7. Your calls, you are a part of the conversation, an essential and integral part of the conversation. Call me on 086 000 2032. Please send me WhatsApp voice notes. Let's engage on 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM. We are at SAFM Radio on X, SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, we are live on our YouTube channel, that is SAFM Radio. So let's get the Monday edition of the Morning Brief started.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All, we honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Big stories of the day. Hashtag the Morning Brief.
So starting us off on our briefing session for this morning is Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief. Good morning to you, Melissa. Let's start with news coming out of the Constitutional Court. Tell me what they've found in relation to the appointment of commissioners for the Commission for Gender Equality.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. The Constitutional Court has declared the appointment of 5 commissioners to the Commission for Gender Equality invalid due to Parliament's failure to ensure adequate public participation. The ruling followed a legal challenge by Corruption Watch, which argued the process lacked transparency and limited public input. The court found the process unconstitutional under Section 59(1)(a) and suspended the declaration of invalidity for 12 months to allow a proper process. The CGE acknowledged the ruling, while Corruption Watch has welcomed it as a victory for democratic accountability.
Yeah, I read the judgment. It's extraordinary how the comment and the public participation was online only. There was a word limit, and it just seemed like it was pro forma. It wasn't meant to actually be, public participation. You would think we haven't had all of the court cases that have settled this issue over the years, but here we are. Once again, Parliament found wanting on that score. Tell me what Mike Masiapato and his team at the Border Management Authority have been doing around the issue of attempts at illegal entry into South Africa.
So the Border Management Authority of South Africa is implementing new security measures to strengthen border control and combat illegal immigration. Key developments announced by the Commissioner include the rollout of secure, traceable immigration stamps to prevent forgery, drone-based surveillance, and enhanced training in counterfeit detection. From April, of 2025 to June 2025, nearly 10,000 individuals attempting illegal entry were intercepted and deported, mainly from Lesotho, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. The BMA also recovered stolen vehicles, seized counterfeit goods, and processed over 8.5 million travelers during this time. Measures have been taken to regulate the cross-border management movement of children and curb document fraud, underscoring the authorities' broad mission to enhance national security. So they're saying that they have made quite a lot of progress, with regards to the management of the borders.
Yeah, I saw him on TV unveiling that new stamp that will be traceable. So the official at the border who stamps your passport, they'll be able to trace which official exactly stamped that passport. He was quite proud of that, was Dr. Mike Masiapato. Let's see if it works in terms of the fraudulent stamping of passports by officials, corrupt officials at the border. Tell me then, the city of Johannesburg's finances, read it and weep. The finance minister wants to do something about that.
Of course, the finance minister, Enoch Godongwane, has given Joburg Mayor Dada Morero a 14-day deadline to address the city's worsening financial crisis. Despite an 89 billion budget for 2025 and 2026, Joburg is facing massive irregular, unauthorized and wasteful expenditures going up to 705 million rand. The city has also been without a finance MEC for a month. Godongwane warned that failure to act may lead to the withholding of national funding. The DA blamed the ANC's mismanagement and warned of imminent service delivery collapse within the city. Meanwhile, a special bomb squad team has been appointed to tackle service issues, and this also happens amid the changes of HODs by the Premier in Gauteng as well. So there's quite a lot happening during this time.
Melissa, do you think we need to explain to people when we say bomb squad that we don't mean
need to break it down.
We don't mean an anti-explosives team. We mean people who are meant to break barriers in terms of service delivery. Do you think, or maybe people get it, right?
Let's emphasize on that, please.
All right, thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief.
You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
It's coming up to 20 minutes after 6. Let's give you your weather then for this Monday. We start with two warnings. The first one is a yellow level 1 warning. It says damaging waves leading to localized disruption to beachfront activities are expected between Saldanha Bay and Cape Agulhas from the evening, spreading to Alexander Bay and Plettenberg Bay from Tuesday morning. The second one, also a yellow level 1 warning. It says damaging interior winds leading to localized damage to informal settlements, risk of runaway fires, as well as localized problems for high-sided vehicles on prone routes. Those conditions are expected over the central parts of the Northern Cape and the Central Karoo in the Western Cape. So the rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria, fine with a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 23. Johannesburg, fine 4 to 22, Mbombela fine 7 to 24, Polokwane fine 6 to 20, Mahikeng will be fine and windy 5 to 22, Bloemfontein fine and windy 3 to 22, Kimberley fine and windy 6 to 23, Uppington fine and windy 12 to 26. Cape Town will be cloudy with widespread rain and showers 14 to 16. George, fine becoming partly cloudy from the afternoon 11 to 24. Gqeberha will be fine becoming cloudy in the evening 16 to 28. East London will be fine 14 to 28. Durban, fine 13 to 24, Richards Bay fine 14 to 27. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will also be fine with a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 27.
Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
If you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen and nothing is off the agenda. Join me on The Talking Point every day from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Only on SAFM.
Have you discovered the TV license WhatsApp yet? We see you binging reruns, living for the drama, loving the SABC Plus sports replays. Now, paying your TV license fits the vibe. Simply say hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060. Get your balance, make a payment, or set up a debit order all in one chat. No queues, no please hold. Just convenience that feels like it should have been here all along. Because every screen in South Africa is a stage and yours is lit. So why wait? Send hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060 and get your TV license sorted today. Hashtag your screen, your story.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
23 minutes after 6. Donald Trump swept to power in the United States on the back of many promises, key amongst them making America great again, mass deportations of illegal immigrants, and a booming economy, low food prices and jobs. But one promise he made is fast turning into a bit of a nightmare for him and his administration: the promise to release the so-called Epstein files. On the campaign trail, Trump and his associates had vowed that his administration would release a trove of documents in the criminal investigation into disgraced late financier and sex pest Jeffrey Epstein. But since Trump returned to the White House, his promises have fallen flat, with few documents released and backtracking about releasing more records. It's prompted huge backlash, including among his own MAGA movement, and also triggered questions that have followed him almost at every stop, every presidential stop. So what's going on? Let's speak to Brooks Spector, associate editor at Daily Maverick. Good morning to you, Brooks, and thank you for your time. I thought this was, I don't know, to me, this seemed like one of those tangential promises on the on the campaign trail. Certainly nothing to be compared to the ones I was listing just now. How did what appeared to be a tangential promise meant to suggest that some key Democrats are on those files end up being almost like a nightmare for Donald Trump right now?
Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating to watch this. I mean, on the grand scheme of things, you would think that Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with Donald Trump was, although sleazy, fairly not very important in comparison to all the other things that you mentioned. But what it did was it's tied together what I like to refer to as the conspiracist view of politics, that there are always dark secrets that that have to be uncovered and revealed to a waiting public, together with a very real feeling about the way in which Jeffrey Epstein carried out his personal life, which is truly sleazy, and there are victims aplenty in all of that. And as a result, the idea that somehow the documentation necessary to prove this, the so-called Epstein file of clients who engage not just in his financial activities as well as his personal sexual preferences and theirs, has become something of an article of faith for people who tend to believe there are always conspiracies and dark corners, things of that type in politics and life. And the problem is there are 10,000 and some odd pages or documents associated with Epstein because, among other things, he's been the subject of various lawsuits. His activities were looked at by a grand jury prior to being convicted for his crime, and the Trump administration had promised, as you say, to release all this stuff, and then suddenly the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, decided that it was all on her desk, and then suddenly it wasn't. And so that gives the conspiratorial mind, the perfect avenue to pursue. Yeah. So it's taken on a life well beyond the actual crime itself.
Yeah. What have you made of Donald Trump's stated reluctance to continue to engage on this subject and saying, are people still talking about that creep, still talking about this guy? But then somehow he ends up answering the questions. And I've been fascinated by some of the answers where he suggests that he ended his relationship because Jeffrey Epstein was, quote unquote, stealing people. That's framing it in a rather challenging way, isn't it? Especially when he links it to activities at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, I mean, part of the problem is that Donald Trump can't find a way out of responding to questions because people keep asking him questions. And every time he answers it, the wheel turns a bit further. And this most recent version that you cite, that Epstein was stealing his people, beg your pardon, but people don't own anybody, and an employee tends to, if they quit a job and go to another one, that's their business. And Donald Trump will inevitably respond to another question on this in yet a different way, and all of that feeds the narrative that there must be darker secrets that are yet unrevealed. I ask you, if you owned a country club with several hundred employees or a couple of country clubs, would you know the personal work histories of every single employee there? Of course not. And so somehow Donald Trump is stuck with this problem that he cannot answer and put away, and yet feels obligated to answer it every time. And it's going to come up and up and up. And that's his. The phrase, that's his tar baby. It's attractive and he can't let go of it.
Sure. Fascinating stuff. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Brooks Spector, Associate Editor at Daily Maverick.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. So reflecting on the weekend, Mamelodi Sundowns making light work of this team. What, Richards Bay?
Yes, oh wow. Yes, this is how it went down. They smashed Richards Bay. What a match. 4-0 the scoreline, storming as Sundowns into the MTN8 semi-finals. We'll also bring you a dream draw which featured last season's top 4 league finishes. So Pirates are chasing their 4th record straight title. They booked their spot. They had a 2-0 win over Polokwane City. Sekhukhune United staging a thrilling comeback. They edged TS Galaxy 3-2, while Stellenbosch FC needed that extra time to outlast Amazulu 3-2. But let's hear from Sundowns coach Miguel Cardoso.
We started very well, and due to that we achieved the result. And second half was a matter of starting again strong in order to make a third goal, so that we at that moment eventually could manage the condition of the players, could try some things that we wanted to try. I think we achieved what we wanted. A good performance, tactically and technically. I think in the cold night it was a beautiful game for people that was watching.
Let's go to cricket action. England, they needed 35 more runs with 4 wickets in hand to beat India in the final test after a 4th day was halted by rain and bad light. There was definitely a incredible atmosphere at the Oval. England reaching 339 for 6 in pursuit of a record-breaking 374 when the weather wiped out the final hour's play. Let's look at this action, and it's Lando Norris in Formula One held off a late attack from McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri to win the Hungarian Grand Prix. Norris controlled his defensive drive in what was quite an intense race, and he's looking forward to, of course, getting over the line and getting a championship in his hat. Mercedes' George Russell took the final podium place, passing Charles Leclerc in the closing stages as the Ferrari faded from pole position. And finally, South African swimming sensation Peter Coetzee has clinched his 3rd medal at the World Aquatics Championship in Singapore, taking silver in the 50-meter backstroke. He finished with the 24.17 seconds medal, tying for 2nd, just behind the world record holder Kliment Kolesnikov. This result comes after his gold in the 100 meters and his silver in the 200-meter backstroke, equaling Roland Schoeman's record of 3 medals at a single long course world championships. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, South African Communist Party Secretary General Solly Mapaila says they are not aiming to break the alliance with the ANC by independently taking part in next year's municipal elections. He was speaking at a gathering yesterday to commemorate the party's 104th anniversary. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi says the province has decided to reshuffle some heads of departments and remove others from their responsibilities. This follows a series of issues related to under-expenditure and underperformance in various departments across the province. And the trial of the 6 men accused in connection with the Ngobozana massacre will resume this morning. It was adjourned on Friday after the first witness completed his testimony. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. It is heavy coming into Joburg from the south. There's quite a big backlog on the N1. It's a lot worse than normal. N1 from the Potch Highway up passing Eldos and Devlin through Diepkloof interchange. If you're on your way to Uncle Charlie's, big wall of traffic to get through there. The Mike 1 from Ormonde through to Braamfontein is a touch heavier than normal. And the N3 currently sitting from Germiston all the way through to Van Buren Road. Big pressure into Pretoria on Eskiem Paflele. Crash as you come into the city centre near Baloot Street. Traffic all the way back to the Mopani Highway and back up the R80 halfway to Bremer Street, so that's heavy. If you're just joining us and missed the updates earlier, the N3 at Market Road, Pietermaritzburg, all reopened this morning. In fact, it was all done and dusted in terms of the demolition about 8 p.m. last night. So from last night, the road's already been open and normal flows of traffic through there. Cape Town, you might be seeing a few social media posts flying around about Baden-Powell being closed. Baden-Powell is open. There's no sand, there's no water. Oh, the rain is coming, but Baden-Powell is open between the N2 and Muizenberg, both directions. A little bit of traffic build up into Strandfontein Road, as there normally is towards Muizenberg, but importantly the road is open. And with the rain about Cape Town, highways are a touch busier than you might normally expect on a Monday. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The business update on SAFM.
For the first update of the week, let's speak to Ndauling Lechela. Good morning to you, Ndauling. Let's start with Donald Trump firing the head of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. I don't like the numbers. Get out of here. You're fired.
That's exactly what he did to us. In a shocking move, the president of the U.S., Donald Trump, fired Commissioner of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, Erica McAntifer, an agency that's similar to the likes of Stats SA. Now, the move follows a disappointing July jobs report that showed only 73,000 jobs were created, far below the estimated 104,000 jobs. This resulted in the unemployment rate rising to 4.2% last month. Now, Trump accused McAntifer, a Biden appointee, of politically manipulating jobs data to sort of discredit him and discredit his administration. Now, the firing drew criticism from former BLS commissioners and statisticians who emphasized that there's no evidence to support allegations of systematic data manipulation, with many calling the firing political and groundless, warning that it undermines the credibility of U.S. economic data. Now, the move has sparked concerns about the integrity of government statistics and the potential impact on public trust. Now, Trump is yet to fill the top spot.
Yeah, fascinating development there. Let's talk about the oil price. Tell me why OPEC Plus members are increasing production. We don't mind. Hey, as long as it drives down, we are okay. We're not complaining.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, OPEC is of the opinion that there's increased demand, and so they've decided to increase production in the market, increasing output by 547,000 barrels per day from September. This move is part of the oil cartel's efforts to regain market share amid concerns over potential supply disruptions linked to Russia. Now, OPEC cited a healthy economy and low stocks as reasons behind its decision, with Amrita Sen, co-founder of Energy Aspects, noting that oil prices around $70 could give, or rather gave OPEC confidence about market fundamentals, meaning the cartel expects demand for oil to increase. Now, the production hike marks a full reversal of OPEC's largest output cuts, with the group aiming to regain market share after years of curtailing production to support oil prices. Now, analysts believe the market has absorbed the additional barrels, while partly due to stockpiling activity in China. Now, following the move, oil prices dropped to around $67 per barrel from $70 last week. This comes as there are concerns of a market in oversupply. And as you mentioned, we're happy about this move, as it could mean lower fuel prices. But it's not guaranteed, of course, especially here at home, due to the volatile rand and how that then influences our buying or purchasing power of oil.
Yeah, at least that one particular lever can be, I don't know, it's out of our control, but hey, in play perhaps slightly favorably for us.
Yeah.
Lastly, Ntaoleng, recap how we closed on Friday and how those markets that have opened have set the tone for the week.
Now, starting in the US, stocks tumbled at the end of last week, ending in the red. This comes after the downbeat jobs print, indicating that hiring in the US is cooling. The Nasdaq being the hardest hit, down over 2%. And then looking at local markets, the JSE closed in the red as well, as investors digested those reciprocal tariffs. It so, of course, hit with duties worth 30%. The all share declined 0.79%, fueled by a near 2% drop in the industrial 25. The rand, in the meantime, kicking the week on a stronger footing after being battered on Friday. It's at 18.04 to the dollar from about 18.23 last week. And then lastly, in Asia, markets mixed, with traders weighing up US tariffs and OPEC's latest decision to increase oil output.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's Ntaoleng Lechela with the first update of the day, but also the first of the week. She'll be back just after 7:30 with more insights for you.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning to you. Sure. Again, Donald Trump. Let's start. Tell me about the new wave of tariffs ranging from 10% to 41%. How does that feature on the African continent?
Refreshing morning, Thulas and Jumbo Africa, to the listeners. Hence, Thulas, I send you that clip. I said that tariffs are now ahead when you look at the African continent. But Thulas, I think for our listeners, we have to take them back always to look at this impact on the African continent. Between 2018 and 2020, there were still issues of commodity prices, capital outflows, trade between Asia and West, what you call the US and EU. But the midterm, Thulas, 2020, 2025, we saw that this was coming also, Thulas, between USA and China. The Africa trade, continental free trade coming into operation, but still Thulas remaining not implementable in many African countries. Foreign direct investment, Thulas. These are the things that have been said before. But also the question of trade regionalization. What then is the role of WTO when you have this tariffs being imposed on the African continent? Out of 22 African countries that are facing these tariffs, I saw the top 4 and the last 4. The top 4 being North Africa, sitting where they are now. You look at Algeria on 30% still on the new tariff, Libya 30%, South Africa 30%, Tunisia slightly down with only 3% from 28% to 25%. Lesotho, you will be shocked, from 50% to 15%, a slash of 35%. But the last 4 that I saw, Zimbabwe going down with 15% from 18%. Zambia going down with only from 17 to 15. Uganda back on 15%. Nigeria also suffering only with 1%. So if you look at these numbers, that shows that this global trade of tariffs, they will definitely lead us even to a serious conflict and an issue around what we'll talk, the shocks of economic growth in many African countries.
Yeah, slightly lower tariff for Lesotho because in the first round, the number that was announced shocked almost everyone, 50%. But nonetheless, it's decimating the economy of Lesotho, in particular the textiles sector, which exports to the United States. And I see, speaking of the United States, Washington continues to be the center of the African Great Lakes diplomacy.
That is quite true, Tulas. But also this meeting on Friday was all about what we call the Joint Oversight Committee. They were just setting up the Joint Oversight Committee, Tulas, to deal with dispute resolution, to deal with the peace process between the DRC and Rwanda. And I think, Tulas, you'll understand the AU was an observer in this meeting. Qatar, they were part of this Washington meeting that happened over the weekend. But it is very critical, Tulas, to look at that. Will this Joint Oversight Committee also look into the impact of the M23 Thulas in the Eastern DRC? You can look at this peace process, the Joint Oversight Committee, but also the negative impact that will come. The current trial of Kabila going on, Thulas, you might look at it as not going to be a negative impact to this peace process. But all in all, Thulas, one can say it was just about setting up the Joint Oversight Committee.
Let's stay in the Great Lakes. There's still a role, it seems, for SADC and the East Africa community?
Tulas, they're sitting with a bloated mediation team there, and these are your former presidents. But they met in Nairobi, both East Africa community and SADC, saying that let's now collaborate and deal with this lasting solution to the conflict in the Eastern DRC. Both President Mnangagwa is an outgoing chairperson of SADC, and East Africa Community Chairperson William Ruto. They met Thulas with a panel of 5 mediators, like I said, Uhuru Kenyatta, Obasanjo, Catherine Samba Panza from CR, Ethiopia, Sahle-Work Zwede, and the former president of Botswana, Mokgweetsi Masisi. Hence I said, Thulas, if you have more than 7 mediators in the Eastern DRC, at the same time you have a Washington process going on. But their meeting, Thulas, was just to reflect and say, how do we support the current ongoing process in Washington? It will always see, Thulas, we are always coming at the back seat of African conflict.
Yeah. For some reason, your historical archives, I always associate the Arusha Accords with the reporting at the time of the likes of Makosini Mkitjwa and Miranda Stradom. Tell me about it. The 4th of August, 1993.
Thulas is 32 years ago, and a very interesting site also if people visit Arusha. There's a museum actually, Thulas, when you go to Tanzania, where they have documented this Arusha peace signing that was between the government of Rwanda and the RPF, the Rwanda Patriotic Front. Juvenal Habyarimana, Thulas, remember this is the guy who caused the genocide in 1994 when his plane was being shot down. But the peace process was mediated by the then president of Tanzania, Ali Hassan Mwinyi. We had Salim Ahmed Salim, Thulas, who was also part of that meeting as an observer in that session. I saw names like Museveni was there, Thulas. People like even Zimbabwe was part of that process. There were other foreign countries, Nigeria and Zimbabwe, the only ones. But the US and France and Germany were also observers in this peace accord that was signed in 1993 on this day between the government of Rwanda and the Rwandese Patriotic Front. Asante sana Thulas, as was leading the conversation. SAFM observing the Women's Month. Malibongwe, Thulas.
Malibongwe, Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula with your Africa update for today.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
All right, you're listening to the Morning Brief on this Monday. Do get in touch with us. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. You can also send me WhatsApp voice notes on the number. Let me try and say it the way that Kathy Mushlahlana says it. 0614 104 107. It makes more sense that way, but my mind is not wired that way. So let me try it again. 0614 104 107. It's easier to say it that way, and I think you'll remember it better if I put it that way. So I'm willing to engage with you on any and all issues that may be exercising your mind this morning. But let me come back to this story. At what age should children be allowed to own and spend copious amounts of time on gadgets like smartphones and tablets? It's a question that vexes many parents. It's especially pertinent now with recent comprehensive international study that has been published in the Journal of Human Development and Capabilities, showing that children who received access to smartphones before the age of 13 were significantly more likely to experience mental health challenges in early childhood, including anxiety, depression, emotional instability, aggression, and social withdrawal. The study is based on analysis of over 100,000 individuals in more than 160 countries. Let's bring into the conversation Lerato Ndwambe, who is a social media lawyer and also the chairperson of Smartphone Free Childhood South Africa. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. This journal report that is out now talking about the mental health effects of early exposure to gadgets like smartphones makes for intriguing, if not disturbing, reading.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Thulas, and thank you so much for having me. I think this is something that we've been seeing, especially in the line of work that I'm doing. But you always have doubters, and I think this is one of many reports which now has evidence, together with the new book that was published by a social psychologist, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. So I think there's more and more research that we're seeing the effects of smartphones and screen time, especially on young children. It's something that we have been seeing, but we just didn't have necessary data to back it up. And I'm happy to see that there's more and more, psychologists, psychiatrists, who are actually putting out this information for parents as well as educators and the government to consider.
Yeah, so with each report out, with each book being written, we're getting a glimpse into the detrimental elements of early exposure and too much exposure to social media. But in particular, which areas are particularly problematic, particularly if you consider the developmental stages at which children are at that stage, interacting with what is a global universe, with all sorts of people that they interact with.
Absolutely. I think, giving a child a smartphone is like giving them a loaded gun and expecting them not to use it. And I think a lot of us as parents and legal guardians also, the modeling of the behaviors as parents in terms of scrolling our phones when we're bored, binge watching or streaming habits, tuning out other people or our children, when they ask us, questions because we're so addicted to our phones. And I think we're seeing a lot of key signs from children, including increased irritability, anxiety, mood swings. You'll see kids that are 2 years old who already have the scrolling finger, and a child just throwing a tantrum just because you're taking a tablet or you're switching off a screen away or taking a phone away. Also, we're seeing, especially amongst younger children, difficulty sleeping, frequent nightmares because of what they're exposed to online, whether it's through gaming, whether it's through movies, or whether it's some of the things that they're exposed to online. We're also seeing, decline in school performance and lack of concentration. Also, kids, having secretive behavior, withdrawal behaviors. Some, kids hiding their screen activity, becoming, unusually private. You get a child who closes a door when they enter into, their bedrooms, and that's extremely dangerous. We're also seeing physical signs, headaches, eye strains. More and more children are actually getting glasses now because their eyes are so affected by too much screen time. We're also seeing, changes in social interactions. You'll go to family reunions, you'll go to, outings with children, and they don't mingle among themselves. They're all on their phones scrolling away, and that has significant impact on social interaction, social cues. Also seeing signs of addiction, obsessive checking on phones, obsession of appearance. Kids that are 9 and 8 are obsessed with skincare and makeup, the beauty filters that are on social media. So there's a lot of things that I can talk about relating to this topic because it's behaviors that we see. Yeah.
Add to that, I think the one that really struck a chord with me, just from observing my 9-year-old child, my daughter, is the issue of rejection where on social media you will encounter rejection and people saying mean things to you. Kids can't handle that the next child doesn't want to play with me in the playground, let alone someone making a mean comment about them or, that kind of cyberbullying. But you are suggesting solutions, and you're saying we need to be adopting a community-wide support in delaying smartphone ownership. I say to you, easier said than done.
It is very, but we're one of 32 chapters. So we're a global movement called South African, Smartphone Free Childhood South Africa. We're one of 32 chapters in the world, and essentially our mission is to shift, societal norms around acceptable use of smartphones and access to smartphones. So we are, using Jonathan Haidt's proposed norms of delaying smartphones until high school, delaying social media until 16, promoting smartphone-free schools across, South Africa, and encouraging more responsibility and engagement and free play in the world, and also promoting digital safeguarding and limited and mindful tech use. And I think one of our things that we have is a parent pact. A parent pact is where me and you, Thulas, mutually have an agreement that our families are going to delay giving our children smartphones, typically until high school. And the goal is usually just to remove a lot of peer pressure, because if your daughter says to you, but Lerato has a smartphone, but if me and you have an agreement that we won't give our children smartphone, then we remove a lot of that pressure, and it makes the choice more manageable. And the goal is just to give kids more time to grow up without the pressures and distractions of smartphones, while making it easier for us as parents to have a shared commitment. Because then if we're not giving our children smartphones, but maybe our circle of friends, they have smartphones, then we can say, okay, let's organize a play date between our children, because we're aligned in our children not being exposed. So those are one of our tools that we offer our parent pact. We also have our smartphone free schools. You can just go to our website and be able to join, the communities that exist. You can look at our phone free register, WhatsApp community. We also have a parent pact, and we also give, newsletters where we just share, developments. We share resources on how we can actually curb this pressure that we have for our children and these devices that we give them so early.
What a time to be alive. Thank you for that, Lerato. That's Lerato Ntwampe, social media lawyer, as well as chairperson of Smartphone Free Childhood South Africa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Having a look at the traffic flows around Joburg, you kind of think there must be a lot of development that's gone on recently in the southern sort of areas, south of Joburg, because the traffic, that's where it comes from these days. Look at this, the N1 from the N12 Potch Highway, that's coming in from Protea, Glen, Lenasia, Eldos, that's heavy into Dipcliff. The R59 arriving up from the Vaal, heavy queues through Swat copies up to Michelle. The N3 from the Elands interchange jammed all the way through Galilees up to Edenvale and straight through the middle. The Mike 1 from Gold Reef City through to about Empire Road's pretty heavy. There's a lot of pressure coming in from the south side of Joburg going north. Into Pretoria we go with a very slow and heavy backed up Eskia and Pathlele. It's one of the three big routes in from the south, and it's a crash down by Bloot Street as you come through Marabstad and the CBD. The backlog of traffic into town this morning into Pretoria along that Eskia and Pathlele route backs all the way to Theo Martins on the approach on Mopani Highway. So that's a very heavy Monday for motorists out that way. N3 at Pietermaritzburg all reopened, opened up 8 p.m. last night. In fact, after that demolition of the Market Road Bridge, so no impact there. N2's heavy from Munzap Tony up to Prospect, and then from the M7 on your way up to Westwood Mall. A lot of traffic, busy Monday morning. And Cape Town, just fairly slow on the N1 today. Got big traffic from really Kryfontein all the way through to Sable Road. It's a crash on your way inbound before Durban Road, and then another crash before Sable Road, causing the backlog. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
EFC is live this Thursday in the heart of Africa. Battle lines are drawn. Africa's best face Europe's elite. Vili, the White Lion van Rooyen, is now back to defend his title against Anatoly Gaffin. And Ntando, the Zulu warrior zombie, receives the challenge of the fearsome Muhammad Salohidinov. EFC 126 is live this Thursday from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All. We honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, just battling a little bit to get a hold of our guest Lesiba Tobagale from the South African Police Union about that story with the question of whether or not you are allowed to record police officers on video whenever you encounter them, and also to even ask them questions. But I'd like to hear your reflections on that story. Do you switch on your video the moment a police officer stops you at a roadblock? And why do you do that if you do? And how has that panned out for you? Because in some instances, my view is that it sometimes escalates and ends up being quite aggressive. Those encounters happen in spaces where it's just you and these police officers, right? I've had quite a few interesting let's call it that, interesting encounters with police officers. It's because of a judgment that came out from the High Court in Johannesburg, which says that, in fact, to quote directly from it, at paragraph 32, it says, "I hold the view that citizens are entitled to ask questions and are entitled to explanations from law enforcement officers in respect of their conduct, and that cannot be regarded as interference with the execution of their lawful duties." The paragraphs before then speak of the lawyer in that particular instance who had whipped out his camera and started recording these officers. But someone here wants to reflect on the conversation we just had with Lerato Ndwampe about screen time for children and smartphone-free childhood South Africa.
Good morning, Thulas and your team. This is Succulent to win from Bontlabele. Thulas, I believe that the appropriate age for children to spend a significant amount of time on their gadgets is 17 years, but they still need to be monitored to check if they are doing the right thing on their phones. Thank you.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Sakile. Thank you for that. But I can tell you now, it's quite difficult, especially because it seems to be pervasive, and all the other children, quote unquote, all the other children, because it's not all the other children who are on smartphones, but the number of children that your child will be interacting with that are using smartphones just makes it really difficult. And a lot of parents have been creative about it. Timing that screen time and giving it an allowance and taking advantage of technologies that are available that enable you to take more control, such that you allocate the screen time that you will spend no more than an hour, no more than 2 hours with screen time. But yeah, it's one of those social issues of our time. Again, I say, it's not like one of those where we can chant down Babylon walls and demand that someone does something about it. It falls upon us how this shapes up. Let's go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, SACP maintains it's not aiming to break alliance with the ANC, and Edgar Lungu repatriation matter back in the High Court. Good morning. The South African Communist Party General Secretary Solly Mapahila says they are not aiming to break the alliance with the ANC by independently taking part in next year's municipal elections. He was speaking at a gathering to commemorate the party's 104th anniversary yesterday. Mapahila says the SACP is implementing a conference resolution already taken in 2022, and the SACP is tired of taking part in never-ending discussions with the ANC.
Things have to change, my comrade. Appreciating this question. We need tangibility of leadership outcomes and discussions, not patronizing. Not patronizing. That's the reason why this decision of the Communist Party also gives us leverage. We can talk with each other, but if talking to each other only satisfies that the president has picked up my call, doesn't mean anything for me. What is important is what it means for the people of our country.
Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi says the province has decided to reshuffle some heads of departments and remove others from their responsibilities. This follows a series of issues related to under-expenditure and underperformance in various departments across the province. Lesufi says the decision also follows audit outcomes which revealed some departments are not performing well. Briefing the media yesterday, he said given how serious the issue of service delivery is, they could not overlook this.
I also indicated on the 17th of July that there were departments that underspent seriously. The total underspend at that time stood at 1.8 billion. It has now gone to 1.3 after the authorization of some of the transactions that we requested to be carried over. There are also heads of departments that have missed their performance targets, and we took serious exception that with the challenges that we are facing of service delivery, we can afford departments that are missing performance targets. Within that context, I've taken a decision to reshuffle and reset heads of departments.
The trial of the 6 men accused in connection with the Ngobozana massacre will resume this morning at the Mthatha High Court sitting in Lusikisiki. It was adjourned on Friday after the first witness completed his testimony. The state has added another case to the ongoing trial. This after it linked the firearms used to kill the 18 deceased to the firearms used in the killing of an ANC politician. Fundisa Mtlekude reports.
On Thursday and Friday, the state called its first witness, the brother of the late politician Mncedisi Gijana. He testified that 3 balaclava-clad gunmen carrying rifles came to their home looking for Gijana. The court adjourned as the witness broke down while relaying how he found his brother in a pool of blood. This after he was allegedly shot multiple times in his room by the gunmen who later escaped the scene in the deceased wife's car. The state is expected to call the next witness to the stand this morning.
The impasse over the final resting place of the former Zambian President Edgar Lungu heads back to the High Court in Pretoria today for a final determination on the matter. This as the Zambian government seeks declaratory relief which would entitle the Zambian government the right to repatriate the former president's body to Zambia for a state funeral and burial in Embassy Park. Kenny Mapanga reports.
The late former President Lungu's burial, which was set to take place in June this year, was interdicted by agreement between parties, pending the final determination of this issue. The Zambian government charges in papers that while former President Lungu's benefits were suspended when he became engaged in active politics, that impediment fell away upon his passing. As a result, Lungu became entitled to a state funeral, and the Zambian government acquired the rights to accord him such.
And finally, reports from Gaza say more Palestinians desperately seeking aid near distribution points have come under fire from Israeli troops at 2 different locations yesterday. Hospitals in Gaza say at least 27 Palestinians were killed. The BBC's Hugo Bachega has more.
It was another day of reports of daily shootings near sites run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is this new mechanism supported by the Americans and the Israelis in Gaza. And this has been the near daily occurrence in Gaza since this new mechanism was introduced in late May. And reports of Israeli soldiers firing on crowds of Palestinians, desperate Palestinians seeking aid. Now, the Israeli military hasn't yet commented commented on those reports.
Recapping the top story, the South African Communist Party General Secretary Solima Pahila says they are not aiming to break the alliance with the ANC by independently taking part in next year's municipal elections. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
Outsurance made it possible for us to travel more with the money that we save. 725. This is really real.
You are the biggest saver we've ever had.
2,794 Rand a month. It was the easiest switch ever. Get real.
How is it that Outsurance provided the solution for you?
918 Rand is what I'm saving.
Incredible.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, soccer action, MTN 8 semi-finals locked in. Pirates, Sundowns, Stellies and Sekhukhune ready for battle. And we'll also bring you action from the Currie Cup, the latest in the round. All this just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. One of the biggest delays that we're looking at this stage is into Pretoria. If you're workbound, a big crash on Esky and Pathleli down by Blood Street as you come through Marabastad into the CBD. The backlog behind that, traffic on Esky and Pathleli is right back on the Montbody Highway, right back to sort of Brits Road, Theo Martins. It is heavy into Pretoria Central. Queues coming through into Benoni today from Pittsfontein to Daveyton with a breakdown near Snake Road. The N3 is heavy, Germiston right through to Edenvale, and still a lot of pressure on the N1 coming from the N12 Potch Highway all the way up through the Diepkloof interchange down to Uncle Charlie's. Durban from Mwanzamtoti heading up towards the airport. There's quite a bit of traffic to work through, which is not unusual for a Monday. Big traffic, Toti through 20 Hill up to Prospecton, then again from the M7 to Westwood Mall, and then again a crash up before Gateway. That's your third queue as you line up from the Komarshu side. Cape Town, 2 crashes on the N1, one at Durban Road. That's heavy coming in from Kraaifontein, another by Sable Road, so that's heavy from Belleville. A crash on the N2 inbound before Bunga Avenue, causing a pushback right to the airport. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's coming up to 9 minutes after 7 on this Monday. It is great to be in your company. Let's waste no time and get straight to it because we've got quite a fair amount of ground to cover within the next half hour with 3 stories that we want to bring you. So let's start with this one then. The Lesotho government is expected to send a delegation to this country to engage our government on key issues, and this includes immigration and healthcare. Listen to the Lesotho Communications Minister Ntati Morosi raising concerns over what she describes as xenophobic-like treatment of Basotho citizens in South Africa, but also raising other issues as well.
Our appeal is that if you give a Mosotho citizen a visa to be in South Africa for a period of time, this Mosotho citizen would be in South Africa lawfully. That means that the citizen should access the health services because they're already in South Africa. Otherwise, what are we doing? Are we relegating them to death or what? So I think it's very important that if there are changes to, or rather, if there are conditions that we have to adhere to as the citizens who get the permits to be in South Africa, those conditions have to be clarified.
Morosi says while she believes that this might not be an official.
Yeah, so that's really the comments coming through from the Lesotho Communications Minister. Let's take that conversation forward with Professor Lauren Landau, who is a senior researcher at Wits University's African Center for Migration and Society. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. The context for it all, of course, is the wave of marches that we've been seeing by groups like Operation Dudula and the March and March movement, but also comments from our own government about being reimbursed for healthcare received by foreign nationals from various African countries that they receive, the healthcare received while they're in South Africa. How do we navigate this issue? What are the ground rules around this issue of access to healthcare by foreign nationals when they're in South Africa?
Good morning. I think the starting point is really the regulations that we have in South Africa, the Constitution, and all of the sort of regulations around access to healthcare. And very clearly there are rules about how foreigners, whether you're here illegally, whether you're here with documentation, whatever it might be, can access healthcare. And very clearly, no one can be denied what's called life-saving care. So if you're sick and the medical care can help save you, it doesn't matter what you can pay, it doesn't matter where you're from, you have an entitlement to that care. Other things are a little more complicated, but there are fees, there are regulations. But what we've seen is the privatization and the informalization of those regulations. So it's march on march, as you say, Dudula, deciding for themselves, clearly with the support of government in some instances, who should get access to that care, regardless of what the law says. And I think that's what the real problem is here, is that no one knows whether they can access care, even if they're entitled to it. And that means their lives and the wealth and health of their families are also at risk.
Yeah, Prof, if I can ask you to, I don't know if how you're holding your handset at the moment, so it does seem to be fluctuating here and there. Let's see if we can get it to improve. You mentioned the taking it upon themselves by groups like Operation Dudula and March movement. What have you made of government's response to that? How has government navigated that particular space in line with international obligations, our constitution, the rule of law, and the likes?
Yeah, I think what we've seen is that government has been deafening in its silence on this issue. Clearly, these are at public facilities. There are officials there. There are police or security there who could stop these kind of activities from happening. By not stopping, they're basically surrendering the sovereignty of the government, of the law, to who comes in, to private actors. These private actors seem to have stronger and stronger connections with political parties or political movements for sure. And so essentially saying it is not government's job to decide who comes in. It's the citizenry or political parties. And that's worrying not just for the wealth and healthcare of those people, but really about the rule of law more generally.
But this is not to be insensitive, is it, to the legitimate concerns that citizens have about uncontrolled migration, waves of uncontrolled migration, a sense that, government has completely lost control in terms of our borders and border control and the system of documentation in the country. Is it? Because you will find that there'll be that debate that says you and I can sit and pontificate about this because perhaps we are not directly exposed to the ravages of systems that are buckling under the pressure.
Well, I think you're absolutely right that people have legitimate concerns about access to education, access to healthcare, access to employment, housing, etc. The question is whether the problems are because of immigration or the problems are lack of planning, lack of support, lack of finance, lack of skills. And yes, immigration does add to the population, but the numbers of people in the country now are not tremendously greater than they've been in the past. This is part of the population. Basotho, for example, have been working in South Africa for generations. These are people who are here. What we haven't done is plan for the population that we've got. So yes, immigration is one of many challenges, but the real issue, and what we would hope the marches would be about, is not keeping immigrants out or putting their lives at risk, but rather about reforming a system that has buckled under bad management for the last 20 years. If you can fix the system, immigrants and that issue, and as far as healthcare goes, will largely disappear.
And what about the distinction between documented and undocumented migrants in South Africa? There are certain rights and entitlements that arise by mere fact of either being an official asylum seeker or actually having one of the many, permits that we have within our immigration system. Is that falling by the wayside with the focus now almost no longer being on illegal migration, but just migration, period?
Right. And you're very right that the law makes quite clear distinctions between these different categories for what services they're entitled to, what protections, etc. That discussion has largely disappeared, and it's really about we need immigrants to not access our public services. And that's a problem, and especially when it comes to health, because if people are in the country and not accessing healthcare, they put us all at risk, right? We've seen the dangers of pandemic. We've seen the dangers of people with TB and others who go untreated. They become vectors of challenge of healthcare problems for the rest of us. So the question is not, should we keep all foreigners out? It's how do we make South Africa healthier? How do we keep and protect South African citizens? And that usually means not looking at someone's documentation, but saying, look, as that minister or the information minister from Lesotho said, if they're here and they're working and they're part of the community, they should be accessing healthcare.
So what's the alternative path that we're clearly not taking at the moment, Prof?
Well, I think if we look at what Lesotho is saying, we're probably Eswatini, Mozambique, it's to say, look, we have a regional economy. South Africa and these countries are connected for generations through migrant labor, through the economy. South Africa would suffer without their work. Those countries would suffer without access to the South African labor market. We need to think about regional systems, bilateral and regional systems. And my hope is that the visit from the Lesotho delegation will help move us in that direction.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Professor Lauren Lando, who is Senior Researcher at Wits University's African Center for Migration and Society.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
The Uganda Cranes have a huge responsibility to exhilarate their fans on home soil. Meanwhile, the Desert Foxes believe they will prevail away from home. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Catch Uganda versus Algeria this Monday, 4 August at 7 p.m. Live everywhere for everyone on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So let's continue with that. Something of a theme around migration and the issues that it brings up. Mpumalanga police, you will have heard on Friday that they arrested about 1,000 illegal miners at a mine in Barberton. They were nabbed during Operation Vala Umgodi, which is a police operation with the participation of the SANDF, the South African National Defence Force. And the whole aim and objective is at curbing the prevalent illegal mining activities in the country. But in the midst of that, issues of migration again coming to the fore, with the police saying that many, if not most, of those 1,000 illegal miners were actually undocumented immigrants. So let's speak to David van Wyk, lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. You do quite a great deal of work in this area of illegal mining. Tell me about what our understanding is of the problem as it manifests in areas like Barberton in Mpumalanga, which, you know, has traditionally been part of the gold belt in South Africa.
Well, yes, I think the Barberton area is an interesting area because it's close to Mozambique. Mozambique is a labor-sending area to South Africa, especially the southern parts of Mozambique. And many of these mines are very old mines, Fairview, Sheba, Consort, and so on in the Barberton complex. They should actually be closed and rehabilitated. But what happens in South Africa is we don't close and rehabilitate mines. We pass them on to smaller operators and ever smaller operators who, in order to make them profitable, cut costs. This particular operation retrenched 200 workers just in May this year, for example. Now, as I observe the situation there, it seems to be a ghost operation of a parallel mining operation happening alongside a formal mining operation that is ongoing. Now, a parallel operation means that there are workers underground that other workers don't know. They are not there as part of the formal labor force of the mine and so on. The reason why this occurs is because we use subcontractors and labor brokers and so on in the mines, and unions have been warning about this. The people who are underground don't know who is supposed to be there and who's not supposed to be there, because people are not actually formally employed by the mine directly. These workers, 1,000 workers, you ask yourself, how do they get underground? How do they get fed? How do they get water and so on?
Yeah.
And if they say, oh, they come in through other shafts, that means that the company is not securing the ventilation shafts of the mine and so on properly to ensure that people don't come underground. Otherwise, they are coming in formally through the cages and so on a daily basis, and people take food and water and so on down for them. The other thing which is very problematic is that, when thousands of workers have lost their jobs in South Africa, foreign workers, yes, migrant workers, yes, people from labor sending areas, yes, they lose their jobs, and then they become illegal immigrants because they are stuck. They don't get their pensions and their unemployment benefits and so on. The employer is under no obligation to pay these things out on the day of severance of pay. And then when people get trapped in South Africa in informal settlements because of the living out allowance of mining companies, instead of providing people proper housing, the only thing that they know to do is to come back into the mine.
So this is a situation of great complexity, and I'm glad you've outlined it the way that you have. But tell me, this situation at Sheba Mine, in the sense that it's still an active mine, is that unique, or does that happen, the illegal mining activities happening while the actual mine is still active, or do we see it mostly concentrated in abandoned mines?
No. We have two kinds of Zama operations, those that operate in abandoned mines and then those that operate as ghost workers. And very often the ones who operate as ghost workers are recruited. People go to Lesotho, they go to southern Mozambique, they go to Zimbabwe and elsewhere, Eastern Cape, and they recruit people to come and work in the mines. So the workers go there as part of a syndicated contract with a illegal syndicate. And the problem is that we keep on grabbing these guys that are underground. They get 3 to 6 month sentences. In the Stilfontein case, people got 3 to 6 month sentences suspended for 6 years, and then deportations. And what workers tell us is that even before that bus gets to Lesotho, it's empty because people would have jumped off all along the way because they would bribe the drivers and the guards and so on that bus. So people just come streaming back into the country because the labor sending areas for 150 years have been sending workers to South Africa. There's no development there where they come from. So there's no jobs where they come from. And that's why they always come back.
Say a bit more about that. You've been talking about labor sending areas, and you mentioned in these countries, we can mention them in the Southern African and Central African region. What's the coincidence between illegal mining and illegal migration, uncontrolled illegal migration?
Well, I think there's a big connection between the two. We see that there's actually human trafficking taking place between these countries and South Africa by people who are operating illegally in the mines. Now the question is, why are the police not finding out who is recruiting, who is paying? You know how much it costs to operate a force of 1,000 people underground parallel to a normal operation. And very often people in management in a mine is involved, because how did you get to a point where you've got 1,000 workers underground that are ghost workers? What kind of awareness is there in management that you can allow a situation like that to develop? What kind of security is there at that mine to enable people to enter and exit without you knowing who and what they are, why are they, what are they doing there? And part of that is a system of labor broking and subcontracting, because the mining companies no longer directly employ their labor. They employ mine workers as casual workers so as to avoid paying them the normal fee or the normal wage of a mine worker. So they pay them casual wages. And so they don't know how many people have they subcontracted or not. It's absolute chaos in the mining sector at the moment. And we've been saying that for a long time in the Benchmarks Foundation. It needs to be sorted out.
Yeah, we really have been analyzing this situation, I mean, from all possible angles. And I've had many conversations with you. So what in your mind would be the high impact, low-hanging fruit, to use a governmental expression, an expression that is favored in government, low-hanging fruit in terms of high-impact actions that can be taken, that can begin to deal with what you've demonstrated is quite a complex, situation that plays itself out in various sectors within our society.
Well, I think it's wasteful expenditure to arrest the guys who are underground all the time, give them 3 and 6 month sentences, and within 3 and 6 months they are back underground again. We see that over and over again. I find that Silfontein guys are now operating in the Welkom area and other areas of the country and so on. It's just you do the same thing over and over and you don't learn from your mistake. We need to cut off the buyers. And we can do that by creating a central buying agency to buy gold from anyone who is producing gold in South Africa. The government buys the gold and then markets the gold on international markets. That will cut out the buyers and the syndicates and so on. At the moment, it is just it is pawn shops, it is scrap metal dealers, it is security companies, it is the police themselves who are buying the gold and so on. Unless we shut down that demand, we are not going to end the supply.
Makes a great deal of sense. Thank you for your time, and thank you for just outlining it so well. That's David van Wyk, who is lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, not to underestimate Sekhukhune and Stellenbosch at all, but is Sundowns Orlando Pirates the final before the final?
Oh, you've made your choice clearly, Thulas. I was about to ask you, who's your pick?
I'm asking.
Now, what is that like? That choice. Yeah, anyway, I think it's like watching the perfect underdog story when you come to the MT8. We've got upsets galore. We've got the Soweto Shwane Giants in the mix. This is the MTN8 semi-final. Fixtures confirmed. It's going to be a thrilling showdown. The defending champions, Orlando Pirates, will face the arch rivals Mamelodi Sundowns, while Stellenbosch FC meet first-time semi-finalists Sekhukhune United. Pirates secured their win with a 2-0 win over Polokwane City. Sundowns crushed Richards Bay 4-0, and Stellenbosch edging AmaZulu with two heavyweights clashing and two underdogs dreaming big. Fans are in for a blockbuster battle. In the meantime, Kenya marked their long-awaited debut at the CAF African Nations Championship with a 1-0 victory over two-time champions DR Congo at a sold-out Moi International Sports Centre in Nairobi yesterday. The other match saw Morocco beginning their quest for a third African Nations Championship title with a 2-0 win over Angola in their Group A opener at the Nyayo National Stadium in Nairobi. Closer to home, rugby action, the Griquas staging a stunning second-half comeback to defeat the Boland Cavaliers 48-39 in a 14-try thriller at Griqua Park in Kimberley, trailing 34-19 at halftime. After a flurry of Boland brilliance, the hosts regrouped and ran in 5 second-half tries with Caleb Abrams and Gershwin were each bagging a brace. Let's go to golf news, where Miyu Yamashita produced an almost flawless final round to hold off England's Charlie Hull to win the Women's Open at Royal Porthcawl. And finally, motorsport, Lando Norris held off a late attack from McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri to win the Hungarian Grand Prix. Mercedes' George Russell took the final podium place, passing Ferrari's Charles Leclerc in the closing stages. Let's hear from Lando Norris.
From lap 40, around lap 40, we had a problem with the chassis. So now I've had more details about it. In the car, obviously, I had no idea what was going on. I mean, I had an idea, but it was the wrong idea because I thought it was something that was in our control. Unfortunately, we had an issue on the chassis, so I don't have much to add on that. It's just extremely frustrating when you are fighting for a win, when we had the pace that we had at the beginning of the race, and we lose absolutely everything later on. It's very frustrating.
That's That's an extremely frustrated Charles Leclerc. On the morning brief, we'll have more sport. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has announced they will conduct weekly physical inspections of infrastructure and service delivery challenges in the province in preparation for the G20 summit. The South African Communist Party General Secretary Solly Mapahela says they are not aiming to break the alliance with the ANC by independently taking part in next year's municipal elections. And the impasse over the final resting place of the former Zambian president, Edgar Lungu, heads back to the High Court in Pretoria for a final determination on the matter today. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Morning, a look at traffic headlines around the country. We start just south of Joburg. The N3 closed at Heidelberg Road. There's been quite a big crash scene near the R42 Jacobs Road. That's on the north side of Heidelberg, if you like. But the traffic closed right down by the R23 Balfour exit. So if you're coming up through the Hooks Plaza, maybe after a weekend down in KZN, you'll get into Heidelberg. You'll be rerouted through the town centre in some very heavy traffic, and you'll pop back out the other side. It's just the northbound. It is just the Joburg-bound side that is closed. Crash in Parktown. It's on the Mike 1 Highway before Houghton Drive coming southbound. So extra delays from Sandton northbound. It's pretty heavily backed. Having a look at that from Boyson through to the Melrose area. N14 Pretoria-bound on the Krugersdorp Highway. Big traffic again between the R55 and Brockfontein interchange. You might want to off-ramp at the R55 to avoid the worst of that. Durban busy on the N2 from Amansamtoti. A little bit slow at Twinney Hill. That is easing. But then from the M7 up to Westwood Mall, that is queue number 1. Queue number 2 is into a crash before Gateway with a backlog all the way through towards Queen Nundy Drive. Also the M13 from Hillcrest moving down to Kloof towards Fields Hill. That's looking quite busy. Cape Town, 2 crashes on the N1 inbound. One at Durban Road. That's causing a delay from Brackenfell, Kryfontein. Another big one down by Sable Road causing some onlooking. So that's heavy from that first crash into Belleville all the way down to the Century City exit. M5 is full of traffic this morning from Southfield, Parkwood, all the way up to Kuba. Get a change. And if you're coming out of Tableview, the Gee Road from Parklands Main, heading down to Rats Drive, a crash there causing a backlog. Also locally, Tableview, no lights. Kuba Road, Plattercliff Road, backing things up out of Tableview, passing the refinery. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Vehicle sales. We've been focusing quite a bit on exports and the concern around exports to the US. But overall, the new vehicle sales market is actually doing well.
That's right, Thulas. It seems like here at home locally, despite, the difficulties we are experiencing in the export market, locally, new vehicle sales continued their upward trend in July, delivering the highest monthly sales since October 2019. Now, a total of 51,383 units were sold, representing a 15.6% increase from July last year. Now, this growth has been attributed to improving consumer confidence, favorable credit conditions, and a steady recovery in disposable incomes. Now, passenger cars led the charge with 36,248 units sold, marking a 20% increase. The light commercial vehicle segment also saw an increase with more than 12,300 units sold, representing a near 7% rise. Medium trucks sold 703 units, a 13.9% increase. But sales, of course, in heavy trucks and buses dropped 1.3% to just over 2,000 units being sold last month. Now, in terms of brands leading the sales, Toyota retained its top spot, followed by Suzuki and VW at number 3. NAMSA is positive the momentum will continue, with the association's CEO Mike Mabasa saying the Reserve Bank's recent decision to reduce the repo rate to 7% will inject much needed stimulus into the economy. Now, year to date, sales of new vehicles reached over 330,000 units, a near 14% increase.
Yeah, I promise you I was listening to you in Dowling, but I listened like a man, a typical man. So occasionally I will miss what you say. You and I have a measure that we track. A man and a bakkie, woman and a bakkie. What's happening in that market?
in the manufacturing sector.
No,
Oh,
no,
in
no.
the man in the back. Oh, the car sales.
Yes,
So what we're seeing-
you know how you and we've made it a thing.
How we okay?
Don't drop our
okay.
thing now, okay?
We are seeing an improvement in bakkie vehicles, but it's those double cab bakkies this time around, not necessarily what a small business would use.
I see. Interesting. All right. Tell me then what's happening with sentiment in manufacturing.
So the manufacturing sector kicking the third quarter on a good note, Thulas, with the ABSA Purchasing Managers Index rising to 50.8 points last month from 48.5 in June. This marks the first time in 9 months that the PMI has exceeded the 50-point threshold, indicating expansion in the sector. Now, the improvement was driven by a surge in new sales orders, which increased by 9.8 points to 55.9 points, marking the third consecutive month of growth. But employment and business expectations sub-indices declined, suggesting that the sector's recovery is still somewhat uncertain. Now, according to ABSA, the improvement in demand drove the PMI increase, but growing caution over volatile global trade policies tempered with optimism. Now, that upcoming 30% tariff on local exports to the US adds to the uncertainty. Despite this, the manufacturing sector's performance over the past few months and improved sentiment could set a positive tone for the economy, especially those Q2 numbers. Looking at factory output reports, there's been an improvement in April and May, and so economists expect the sector to make a positive contribution to GDP in the second quarter compared to that negative contribution it made in Q1.
So how did we close here at home and in the United States? But importantly, how have we opened in Asia?
And starting off right there in Asia, markets mostly in the green this morning. There's still some caution with traders eyeing those US tariffs coming into effect before the end of the week and also digesting moves from OPEC. And the latest decision there from OPEC set to increase production is, of course, weighing on crude prices. The oil price down 0.33% this morning at $67.80 per barrel. Over in Wall Street, it seems like markets are in for a positive start to the week, with futures in the green. Earnings still in focus on that front, with traders eyeing Disney's numbers, which are out later in the week. And then coming back home, stocks ended last week on a sour note due to tariff shocks. The all shares shed close to 0.8%. And then looking at currency markets, the rand making slight gains this morning. It is sitting at 18.03 to the greenback.
All right, Ntauling, thank you for that. We'll touch base with you one more time just after 8:30 here on the Morning Brief.
You are the poster child, the biggest saver we've ever had.
I decided that I would contact Outsurance and let them work out what they could do for me.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, big saving. 2,794 Rand a month.
That's over 33,000 Rand a year.
And it was the easiest switch ever. Real people helping real people get real deals.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands.
What does you always get something out mean to you, Lorette?
Outsurance made it possible for us to live our dream to travel more with the money in our pocket that we save.
Let me know, what is it?
725. It was unbelievable. My husband, he sits there on the chair and he's just nodding his head and saying, yes, yes, yes. This is really not just an advertisement. This is really real.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. License insurance FSP, TCs and information online.
Breaking news. SARS has enhanced the personal income tax return form. It has simpler questions that adapt to your income and deductions based on your answers. Whether you're employed or self-employed, the digital form has built-in guidance and the option to save and finish later. Tax matters, so does your time. File with ease on e-filing or the SARS Mobi app today. Go to sars.gov.za. SARS, at your service.
Niger and Guinea both believe they will conquer the 90 minutes in the West African Derby. Who will celebrate the final whistle? This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Catch Niger versus Guinea this Monday, 4 August at 4 p.m. live at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
It's coming up to 19 minutes to 8. Let's turn to education now. And the Gauteng Department of Education says it's aware and deeply concerned by recent disruptions and instability at schools in Vosloorus, the latest being those incidents that happened on Friday last week. This follows an alleged case of learner-on-learner assault at the Thulasizwe Secondary School, which is said to have happened on Wednesday, the 23rd of July, where a grade 8 boy learner was allegedly assaulted by a group of fellow learners, resulting in his hospitalization, and therefore that's spilling out to other schools in the area. Let's speak to Steve Mabona. He speaks on behalf of the Department of Education in Gauteng. Good morning to you, Steve. We had this disruption of learning and teaching on Friday in the area around Vosloorus. Put it in context for us. What happened?
Good morning to us and to all our listeners. Yes, thanks very much. We had a meeting with all the learners, that is representation of all learners and the parents and some stakeholders on Friday. And their issue was that they felt that nothing has been done to the alleged perpetrators, because the case was open and the alleged perpetrator was not probably brought to book. Probably the police are still investigating. But one of the other things was that they did indicate that there were about 3 other learners who were also involved, and nothing has been done. Because remember, from our side, the alleged perpetrator was then suspended, for 7 days. Meanwhile, the others were not. So there was an undertaking on Friday that the other 3 must also be suspended, and that happened. The other complaint again was that the principal allegedly did nothing when this matter was reported, including when the parent came to the school to interact with the principal. And then we decided that as a precautionary measure, the principal need to be reporting to the district office so that we then investigate all those allegations.
The actions you've taken, Steve, the suspension of the 4 learners and the transfer of the principal, or the principal reporting to the circuit office, as you say, the district office, suggests that you are subtly saying that the concerns of these learners and parents are not illegitimate.
Definitely, they are not. I mean, the child is injured, is in hospital. Okay, actually, the child was released very late on Friday. But when you look at, what is being investigated, I mean, you can't investigate common assault when someone is injured. It should be GBH. Yeah, so those are the things that they were also raising. And they are legitimate. I mean, it's a serious matter, need to be attended to. And they also then made other allegations to say there were other alleged perpetrators who are continuously abusing them, bullying them. So we said they need to give us those names. We need to reach very close to those learners and understand on what is it that is happening.
So accepting that the concerns are legitimate as you do, why did it have to take the pupils and the parents disrupting schooling for what seems to be, normal course of action, the obvious course of action to be followed by yourselves?
Now, that's why we will be asking the school management and the SGP. Because remember, Thulas, if information is not escalated to the district level, it might not even reach us at the level of head office. So we were not aware. But we are saying then at the school level what happened. That's why we are now conducting our own investigation. The principal and all other SGP members will be given an opportunity to say, the learners are saying this, why has not been acted upon, and not only at this school, because they mentioned the other school, which we must also visit. Why, the code of conduct, why is it not instilled? Because those schools that got code of conduct, If you bully or allegedly assault other people, then you must be taken to task immediately.
Yeah. Is there a problem area, that area around Vosloorus, for bullying and school disruption and that kind of behavior? Admittedly, I didn't get around to checking on past incidents, but the name Thulasizwe seems to ring a bell to me. Is it for the reasons that I'm thinking, or is it completely different? Do you have a problem at that particular school?
Look, we did have a problem, but then we attended to it. Remember, this school was also highlighted as those that are in the high-risk areas, and we did intervene. I mean, to a certain extent, we had, boxes where you can anonymously, report your issues, and we alerted them on bullying. What is it that they need to look at? And there were interventions. We brought our professionals to assist them. Since then, we did not receive any major challenge. Now, recently, it's an issue that we are looking at. But yes, the school was flagged before.
And then lastly then, Steve, beyond what's happening in Vosloorus, in fact, before I ask you that, what can you say about the situation as far as learning and teaching is concerned on this Monday, subsequent to your meeting with the parents and pupils?
Well, learners gave us an ultimatum to say, if we attend to their issues, then today there won't be any disruption. So we then had to commit to say, as a matter of urgency, these 3 will be suspended, and which is we did. And then we also indicated that the alleged perpetrator, the first one, will not be coming back to school, because remember, after suspension for 7 days, a disciplinary process must sit and they ventilate. But we couldn't, because this one is still the alleged the victim is still in hospital, because we need also the victim to participate in that process. So all those will be at home, and then the principal won't be at school, and they then agree to say, definitely we're not going to disrupt.
So the last question I wanted to ask is about evolution of your thinking about solutions to this problem. I remember there was a time when you were so exasperated that you were talking about possibilities of, putting metal detectors at schools, and that was part of the conversation. How has the conversation evolved, and where are we with that conversation around school safety in Gauteng at the moment?
Yes, we did. Out of the 245 schools that we identified, we then took the number down to 75, then highly classified those ones where we improved in terms of the surveillance cameras, not the metal detectors, but at the entrance, the learners will then be searched, and we're working very closely with the police. Unannounced police come there, search them. In those that they were peddling drugs, some of them, and we happen to have that there's violence perpetrated amongst themselves, utilizing weapons. We did that. But this school, where it was not that of a violent nature where you have weapons and all that, but we then had to educate them on how to behave among themselves, and we continue to also do that in the other areas.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Steve Mabona, spokesperson for the Gauteng Department of Education.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Update on the Heidelberg situation. If you're driving up into Joburg, coming through from Free State or KZN, the N3 is closed in that central Heidelberg area. There's been a big crash just on the north side by the R42. I think they call that Jacobs Road. It's the exit to Nigel. So the road, the N3 to Joburg, is closed right through that Heidelberg area from the R23, the Balfour exit. So you come up through the Hook Plaza, you'll get to Heidelberg, and then you'll divert through the town centre. And it is fairly heavily backed up. You can imagine all those trucks being taken off the N3. And routed through Heidelberg. Bit of chaos through there. The Mike 1 South, a crash at Houghton Drive coming from Sandton into Joburg this morning, pretty heavily backed up. The N1's full of traffic from 14th Avenue all the way down to Rivonia. It gets really heavy by the time you get into Bayers Nordia territory. Pretoria looking busy as well. The N14 from the R55, Pretoria West exit up to Bruckfontein. That's heavy on your way to Pretoria. Eskia and Pafleli from Putco Depot all the way down deep into the city centre of Pretoria. That's very slow going as well today. Durban's N2 North still queuing up M7 through to Westwood Mall, and then a crash before Gateway. So queue number 2 extends from sort of Queen Lundy Drive through Komashu and up towards that Gateway crash scene. The M13 from Hillcrest down through to Kloof remains busy. N3 having a pretty good run. Pietermaritzburg to Durban checks fine. No major problems this morning. Cape Town busy on the N1 inbound from Kraaifontein down to a crash scene just before the Durban Road exit. Once you get past that, it stays busy all the way to Sable Road due to an earlier crash which has just been cleared. Very busy on all the highways as Cape Townians deal with wet weather conditions this morning. A couple of standouts. The M5 is heavy from Parkfield, and the R300 just under pressure all the way up from Delft right through to join that N1 inbound track. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
For news on South African industry and mining, Creamer Media's Engineering News and Mining Weekly has you covered. Click through to Creamer Media's Engineering News each day for the latest on the people and companies shaping the energy transition and South African industry. Keep your finger on the critical minerals pulse by visiting Creamer Media's Mining Weekly. For deeper insight, subscribe to the Engineering News and Mining Weekly magazine, out on Fridays. Creamer Media, current, credible, comprehensive.
The Uganda Cranes have a huge responsibility to exhilarate their fans on home soil. Meanwhile, the Desert Foxes believe they will prevail away from home. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Catch Uganda versus Algeria this Monday, 4 August at 7 p.m. Live everywhere, for everyone on SABC+. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's go straight to your calls. Let me start with Percy in Matlosana. Good morning to you, Percy.
Hey, good morning, Thulasizwe. How are you, my brother?
Very well. How are you?
Good, I'm fine. Hey, Thulasizwe, before I go to my point, man, the kids are still stuck on the shed there about the issue of service provider in Sidiko Primary School. Please, man, get a Minister of Education, because of Department of Education here in Northwest is so corrupt. 3 years service provider has been building this school.
Which school is this, Percy?
Sidiko Primary School.
Sidiko Primary School. And you're saying it's been standing incomplete for quite some time now?
For quite some time. I'm sending you the video. I was there to shoot the video. They didn't pay service provider. He's still waiting for the payment. So they want to remove him to put the new service provider with the higher price.
All right. Please send that through again. I didn't see the video. I'll ask the team to actually forward it to me. But you have another point that you want to raise.
Yes, I have another point about the foreigner. Now I'm in support of March and also Operation Dudulane. Why I'm saying so, Thulasizwe, there is the guy here in Matosana. He's also one of the foreigner from Mozambique. That guy, there is a local cap here. We call them Tambai. That guy owns more than 55 cars. Polo Vivo, Yaris, and Toyota Corolla. Those cars that are hijacked in Gauteng, they bring those cars here in Matosana. They are running here as a local car. So those guys are...
How do you know they're hijacked, Percy? How do you know that this person is not someone who's enterprising and has been able to establish themselves in business?
He never worked before, that guy. He's just a foreigner from Mozambique, doesn't have even proper document. Those guys are hijacked. Like even when maybe there's some roadblock or a jaws is in Luca, those guys are not moving.
All right.
They hide those cars. So
in support of the corruption interests of control and by the foreigner.
All right. Percy in Matlosana, thank you for that. Let me go to Lebohang in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Lebohang. Also on the same theme around migration.
Point is just simple. I'm just worried about mainstream media trying to suppress the voices of people when they say they do have genuine concern, because it is in the Constitution that is very clear. If you are in the country undocumented, that's a crime. Simple. No matter what the humanitarian reasons are, right? It's the same as someone breaking into your house because they're hungry. They violated your right, and therefore you will not tolerate it, right? You will then say there are other ways of addressing your issues. South Africa is, for the SADC countries, they can come here with just their passport. They don't need visa. So there's no reason for someone within, at least within SADC, to come in undocumented.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just worried that mainstream media will lose credibility and people will then go to social media because at least they have been listened to.
Do you mind if I challenge you on that? What do you mean mainstream media silencing those voices? Do voices like Operation Dudula, March on March, not get extensive coverage? In fact, every time there's a march, you will hear their voices. We interview them and we have reporters on the ground reflecting what they are saying without, taking away from it. Scrutinizing it and raising counterpoints doesn't amount to silencing it. It's the battle of ideas, is it not?
You just had two experts that came into the studio, right?
That's today.
And those two experts.
But in the last few days, we've spoken to Jacinta Ngobese. We've spoken to Operation Dudula at length.
But then you do challenge them when they come in.
Yes, just like I challenge the other people that come on. Yeah,
that I agree.
Yes.
That I agree. I don't have a problem you challenging the thinking, right? But I did not see the same vigor when the two experts are coming in.
But as you say, these people come from the perspective of their expertise. They are not agitators in the story. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So I don't want to label this. I'm with you, right? I was just saying what they do is you're speaking to people that have got medical aids. You're speaking to people that are living in affluent places.
Sure, I hear
You're speaking to people that our kids are going to private schools.
I take that point.
Therefore, they are not within the thick of things.
That point I do take. Thank you for that, Lebo, and thank you for
engaging
engaging
me.
Thank you very much. Hassan in Joburg, good morning to you, also on the same issue. Hassan, do I have you? Please hold on for just a second. I think I have you now. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Hello, Thulasizwe?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my point is that where countries have regularized foreigners, they are integrated into society. But I think here what's happened, that people are so opposed to foreigners, whether they're legal or not. And that calls for a separate educational program. I think Spain regularized 900,000. So to arrest the problem, you've got to take some firm measures. But the ideology against foreigners is so extreme that any measure we take, someone who's darker from Limpopo gets beaten up. So there's a kind of politics that has emerged that we need to think deeper how to fight it.
And do you get a sense that it's directed at migrants from the African continent more than it is at migrants from elsewhere in the world? I would imagine that
there is this Afrophobia, but there's also a sense. You remember the 2008 massacre of foreign nationals. A number of people were killed were South Africans or hurt and maimed. So really, we need to start thinking about that. We're going back to an apartheid way where you look at someone and you start ascribing to them or some kind of...
Lastly and very quickly though, Hassan, could this not be in a way managed by government being responsive to the core of the problem, which is uncontrolled migration? I mean, by any measure, when you have 1,000 people that are not documented engaging in further illegal activity, such as illegal mining, surely that is a problem.
Yeah, government is responsive or government is pressured by certain interest groups. Of course, the problem is, are mines closed properly? Are the borders controlled properly? And what are our arrangements? I mean, some of them are really quite foolish. Lesotho is in our stomach. We are Lesotho. So to start finding the Basotho as being illegal, really, we need to rethink.
Yeah. All right. Hassan, thank you for that, and thank you for that engagement. Mukwena, I deliberately didn't take your call now. I will call you back because I do want to afford you time. I don't want us to get into anything. We had a nice conversation the last time, and I'd like us to continue in that vein. So Mukwena, I'll come back to you a bit later on. For now, let me go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, Gauteng to conduct inspections of infrastructure in preparation for the G20 summit, and Edgar Lungu repatriation matter back in the High Court. Good morning. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has announced they will conduct weekly physical inspections of infrastructure and service delivery challenges in the province in preparation for the G20 summit. This as South Africa prepares for the gathering of the world's major economies taking place in November. Johannesburg has been selected as the host city. However, critics have raised concerns regarding the city's readiness. Briefing the media in Midrand yesterday, Lesufi said he will be conducting these inspections with the MECs and executive mayors.
We've also resolved every Tuesday, and want to extend the invite to you, every Tuesday, myself with all the MECs, together with the executive mayors, will physically inspect infrastructure and service delivery challenges in our province as part of the preparations for the G20, which simply means every Tuesday we will walk around the entire province just to determine whether indeed we are ready.
South African Communist Party General Secretary Solly Mapahila says they are not aiming to break the alliance with the ANC by independently taking part in next year's municipal elections. He was speaking at a gathering to commemorate the party's 104th anniversary yesterday. Mapahila says the SACP is implementing a conference resolution already taken in 2022. And he says the SACP is tired of taking part in never-ending discussions with the ANC.
Things have to change, my comrade. Appreciating this question. We need tangibility of leadership outcomes and discussions, not patronizing. Not patronizing. That's the reason why this decision of the Communist Party also gives us leverage. We can talk with each other, but if talking to each other only satisfies that the president has picked up my call, doesn't mean anything for me. What is important is what it means for the people of our country.
More than 490 suspected illegal miners arrested at the Sheba gold mine in Barberton and Mpumalanga are expected to appear in the local magistrates' court today. 434 miners have been charged for contravening the Immigration Act and trespassing. 60 others have been charged for possession of gold-bearing materials. The group was arrested during the police-led raid Operation Valamgodi on Friday. Provincial Police spokesperson Donald Mhluli says efforts are being made to bring to surface those who evaded arrest by going deeper in the mine.
We are engaging with the mine security. Remember, it's a private mine which is functional. So these miners were allegedly conducting illegal mining activities alongside the illegal mining that is taking place. We are also involving the Department of Minerals and Energy to come on board because it's their area of operation, so that together this collaboration team can be able to see the way forward.
The impasse over the final resting place of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu continues at the High Court in Pretoria today for a final determination on the matter. This as the Zambian government seeks declaratory relief, which would entail the Zambian government the right to repatriate the former president's body to Zambia for a state funeral and burial. Kenny Mapanga reports.
The late former President Lungu's burial, which was set to take place in June this year, was interdicted by agreement between parties, pending the final determination of this issue. The Zambian government charges in papers that while former President Lungu's benefits were suspended when he became engaged in active politics, that impediment fell away upon his passing. As a result, Lungu became entitled to a state funeral, and the Zambian government acquired the rights to accord him such.
And finally, the Border Management Authority, the BMA, has introduced new security measures to enhance traveller verification and law enforcement at ports of entry, including for agricultural products. The initiative forms part of the BMA's broader strategy to reinforce border security operations. BMA Commissioner Dr. Mike Masiapa to brief the media in Pretoria yesterday. He says agricultural biosecurity specialists processed over 30,000 shipments through 26 major commercial ports to ensure compliance with safety and quality standards for the period between April and June.
For the smooth facilitation of plants as well as their products at the ports of entry, importers as well as exporters are required to present both an import permit issued by the Department of Agriculture as well as the phytosanitary certificate issued by the country of origin with full compliance to the South African import conditions.
Recapping the top story, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has announced they will conduct weekly physical inspections of infrastructure and service delivery challenges in the province in preparation for the G20 summit. I'll have detail, or rather for SAFM News, I'm Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
With the cost of living going up, you may be looking for ways to save money, like reusing your old tea bags. Well, Outsurance has a better solution. They could save you money on your car insurance. Contact Outsurance today for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Time to get more out of your car insurance. Call 08-600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's rugby. The Springbok women are heading to the Rugby World Cup brimming with confidence. And in soccer, the MTN8 semi-final fixtures confirmed. We'll have details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Top stories from the traffic desk. The N3 Joburg bound still closed at Heidelberg. There's been a big crash near the Jacobs, R42 Jacobs Road. That's the Nigel exit. So traffic closed the N3 at least, closed the traffic right back at the R23 Nigel exit. So if you come up through the Hooks Plaza, you'll get into Heidelberg and then divert with all the truckers through central Heidelberg. And that's why it's so heavily backed up. Some delays on Joburg's N1 Bayers Nordia round to Ravonia this morning. It's very slow going. The Mike 1 from Sandton down to Parktown is busier than you'd like to find. And if you're coming out of Pretoria, there's heavy traffic on the M1 between Garsfontein and Boerta Avenue, Esquiampa Thwally Drive into central Pretoria. Heavily backed up from the Potco depot side. Durban N2 North stays under pressure. A crash at Gateway this morning, pushing a big fat queue all the way back to Queen Nundy Drive territory. Cape Town, the N1 inbound, very heavy from Kraaifontein right through to Belleville. There's a crash before the Durban Road exit. Once you get past that, it stays pretty busy all the way through to Kuba. Get a change. And behind that N1, the R300 is fairly extreme queues from Delft all the way up through Kales River and Brackenfell in towards that N1 highway. Also, the M3's got a lot of traffic from Constantia to Hospital Bend, and the M5's backlogging from Ottery side right through to Kuba. Get a change as well. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 8 on this Monday. What's that they say about time when you're having fun? Yeah, it does seem to fly by quite quickly. We are, can you believe it, in the third hour of the Monday edition of the Morning Brief. Lots of conversations, of course, that you and I have been having for the last 2 hours. So let's get into the third hour. Let me start by reflecting some of the messages that have been coming through. Someone here says, We are in a digital era. We should be talking about how to limit it instead of cutting off, especially since we don't have control of the environment outside our homes. Cutting off will create more problems than solutions. This has to do with a conversation we had earlier on about the mental health effects of early exposure to smartphones and gadgets like those, as well as social media that we were talking about that has been published in a major international journal that has been highlighting that. So thank you for that. Someone else here wants to talk about the situation around migration and the marches that we've been seeing, and the Lesotho government saying that they will engage the South African government about immigration as well as issues of access to healthcare in the country in South Africa, especially for those Basotho who are documented, right? Who have documents in South Africa. This person says, isn't it wiser to let the outsiders pay money for the service they get at a hospital? So that's an interesting take on that. I think that works where you have someone who is here on a proper permit, is employed or engaged in some kind of business and is able to then pay. But the problem is compounded by the fact that we have a lot of asylum seekers who are not necessarily employed at the moment, and a lot of course, as people are pointing out, migrants who are not documented at all and not able to engage in business and in employment, proper regulated employment, that is. So someone here says, the problem with these people who are anti-immigrants is that they are only referring to Africans or black people. They will never confront a white person. In their minds, it is only black people who are undocumented, says someone there on the WhatsApp line. Let's keep it going. You can call me on 086 000 2032, or you can send me a WhatsApp voice note on 0614 104 107. Let's get the third hour of the Monday edition of the Morning Brief underway.
Breaking news. SARS has enhanced the personal income tax return form. It has simpler questions that adapt to your income and deductions based on your answers. Whether you're employed or self-employed, the digital form has built-in guidance and the option to save and finish later. Tax matters, so does your time. File with ease on e-filing or the SARS Mobi app today. Go to sars.gov.za. SARS, at your service.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Niger and Guinea both believe they will conquer the 90 minutes in the West African Derby. Who will celebrate the final whistle? This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Catch Niger versus Guinea this Monday, 4 August at 4 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
13 minutes after 8, some fascinating insights shared by Dr. Calvin Kem, a nuclear physicist and also a business strategist in the area of nuclear, right? This in the wake of the conversations around the ideal energy mix in the country that is more sustainable but also powers up our economy. So Dr. Kem sharing that a number of countries around the world are now waking up to the reality of nuclear power after years of what he calls false anti-nuclear stories scaring their politicians and the international false anti-nuclear propaganda spread by Rock Around, the rainforest activists, is part of that opinion piece that Dr. Calvin Kem has authored. He joins me now to take that conversation forward. Doc, good morning and thank you for your time. The way I read the piece, it talks about what seems to be a shift towards more nuclear, in particular by countries in Europe and the United States in this whole quest for a low carbon economy, more sustainable yet powering our economies. Did I get the point correctly? That's the point you're seeking to make.
Yes, absolutely. That is what's been happening. For some years now, there's been an unreasonable anti-nuclear attitude all over the place for no sensible reason. They come along and they say it's going to blow up, it's going to leak, there's going to be radiation all over the place, all of which is just plain simply nonsense. None of that is true. And over the last sort of 18 months, maybe 2 years, there's been a very measurable shift towards nuclear. And people realizing now that you need energy stability. You need energy security. Energy is the lifeblood of a country. It's like blood flowing through your veins and your arteries. If something stops, then you die. And it's the same with electricity in the country. There's a direct correlation between electricity use and income. If you want more take-home pay, you need to double the electricity consumption of the country. So now there's been a realization that nuclear is an answer. In fact, I think it's the answer. In years to come, the whole world will use nuclear. And now, because of this possible shift and the probability of it happening, you can see all over, I also believe that all over Africa, we want nuclear reactors as well.
So we'll talk about that in a moment and what you are saying about South Africa's leading role in nuclear science. But before we get there, I want us to talk about what's driving this shift towards more nuclear. Is it the same factors that were driving? I think about 2 or so years ago, there was talk about countries that had been championing a move away from coal beginning to themselves invest in more coal. Is it something to do with whether or not renewables have lived up to the promise of being able to sustain, thriving economies?
Absolutely, that's exactly right. It plain and simply is not possible to run an economy on solar and wind. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I'm not opposed to solar and wind per se. If you want to put solar on a farm to do something or wind to pump water up into a dam, then do that. But it's fiction to believe that you can run an electric train from Johannesburg to Cape Town on solar or wind. It's just not on. It's intermittent. The solar you get during the daytime, if there's no cloud, but there's none at night. So then they want to put big battery banks. But to put battery, you've got to put more solar to charge the battery. You can't charge the battery with the same solar that you're using to power something or other during the daytime. Wind is even worse. You just got to wait until the wind blows, and then the wind isn't always blowing strongly. So there's plain and simply fiction to believe you can run a powerful economy on solar and wind. So you need something more. And the thing that's really stable, reliable, excellent is nuclear. Bear in mind that right now in South Africa, Koeberg, which is our nuclear power station, is producing the cheapest electricity in the country, and it just runs daily and reliably, and that's what you want.
So where are we seeing this shift? Just give us some of the examples that you cite in the piece.
Well, you'll find that Trump has come out very much in favor. In fact, I was a guest speaker at a conference in New York 2 months ago. I landed on a Thursday morning. On the Wednesday, Trump announced a 400% increase in the nuclear budget and in the target for construction. And on the Friday, he announced a revamp of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. In fact, he fired the boss and said they're taking too long over doing the legalities. Some of it was deliberate, it would appear. And so he's streamlining everything. You find the French have always been very nuclear. It's interesting that 70% of French electricity is nuclear, whereas the Germans right next door went into the biggest solar and wind experiment in the world. And the electricity in Germany is more than twice the price of electricity in France. And the Nordic countries, Sweden, Finland, have announced going towards nuclear now as well. Even the Germans have been anti-nuclear now, said they won't object to anybody else in the EU going nuclear. And so all over you see people doing it. So there's a big resurgence in nuclear going on.
So let's bring it back home then, Dr. Cam. In South Africa, the conversation has been driven by affordability, in the sense that when people think nuclear, they're thinking more, it used to be that 9,500 megawatts in one go that we were going to procure one way or another, controversially. But you make the point that we are actually world leaders in as far as the commercial development and conceptualization of smaller modular reactors. Talk to me about that. And I'm glad you raised it, because I've been wondering what happened to the allowance for 2,500 megawatts of nuclear procurement and build that was contained in our 2019 integrated resource plan.
Well, bear in mind that South Africa, believe it or not, is the third oldest nuclear country in the world. This year, Nexa celebrated the 60th anniversary of the nuclear reactor there. Nexa itself is over 75 years old. Koeberg celebrated the 40th birthday of its 2 nuclear reactors this year as well. And so South Africa has been in this game a very long time. We know what we're doing. We've got very capable nuclear scientists, nuclear engineers, technicians, and so on here. A lot of people think that we're new kids on the block and we don't know what we're doing. Not at all. We really know what we're doing, and we've been doing a lot. Now, in the 1990s, Eskom had a look at the electricity supply and said, we're going to need a lot more electricity, and what's more, we need it in the middle of the country, like where the gold mines are in the Free State. All our coal sits up in the far northeast in Mpumalanga. We've got Koeberg Nuclear Power Station down by Cape Town, which pushes some electricity from the bottom up. But all in the middle of the country, there's no electricity being generated. So it's a sensible thing to do to have electricity generators in the middle of the country. So the answer was build nuclear. But big nuclear needs water, the ocean. We don't have water in the middle of the country, so we said, let's develop our own nuclear that runs on something which isn't water. And we came to the conclusion a gas-cooled, helium gas-cooled system is the answer. So South Africa became the first country in the world to start developing a commercial small modular reactor that runs on helium gas and will produce good electricity. That's what happened.
And that's still in the pipeline in and around Pretoria, yeah?
Well, our plan is to build one called the HTMR 100 in the Pretoria area. We heard a few people have now offered us pieces of land. There's also collaborations we want with various organizations, with scientific organizations, obviously, because it's a big job and it needs many people pulling together. So we need to still build the first one. And the first one is called the FOAK, meaning first of a kind. And that one has all the legislation stuff around it. We've got to get it licensed and so on.
Yeah.
Once you've done the first one, the second one doesn't need all that extra stuff, and it becomes cheaper to build the second one.
All right.
But they really are the answer.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's leave it there for this morning. That's Dr. Calvin Cam. He's a nuclear physicist and a business strategist based in Pretoria. But he's also a chairperson of Stratec Global, a nuclear project management company.
Chasing the Sun is a 5-part South African sport documentary series. An inspiring story of the 4-time World Rugby champions, the Springboks. The journey of winning the Rugby World Cup, a behind-the-scenes look of how the green and gold team overcame adversity, divisions, and doubt to become world champs. Be there when history shines. Tune into SABC2 on Sundays at 7:30 p.m. from 13 July to 10 August. Also available anytime, anywhere on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
When your internet connection fails, does it really matter how fast it is? Business class internet is built for businesses. With remote monitoring, that means faster problem resolution and a backup LTE connection that keeps you online. Your company deserves business class internet, because just reboot the router isn't a business strategy. Find reliability at vodacombusiness.co.za. Together, let's build the extraordinary. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, let me go to Vusi in Mbombela. Good morning to you, Vusi. You want to talk to me about the issue of undocumented foreign nationals? Hold on for me a second, Vusi. Gremlins in the system here. Let me go to Vusi. Mdu, if you can help me with Vusi in Mbombela, please. Yeah, got you now, Vusi. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Thulas.
Mhm.
Thulas, me, I'm worried as a parent in this country. I've seen many other countries where they had a good economy, but they end up not leaving something for their kids or their generation to inherit. This issue of undocumented people in our country, it's a serious issue. And it says if you project into the next 20, 30 years, what will be left of this country? And our government is not really taking this matter serious, because if they were taking it serious, they will be really looking at what is the root cause of having these people in South Africa. You know, it's easy for people to come into South Africa.
Yeah.
It's easy for people to live into South Africa. And the economic effect of it is very huge. There's a lot of money that SARS is unable to collect. There's a lot of jobs that we are unable to get because of these things. So there is a budget that South Africa can put into it and be able to recoup it back. Look at the issue of when Patricia de Lille was the minister of, I can't remember which ministry, but she was tasked to build a fence in that side of Limpopo for the board. That thing failed, and we don't know why. What happened? Has that service provider been reprimanded?
Yeah.
Are they building it again? So it says the way the government diagnose this issue, they are not taking it as serious as we are.
Thank you, Vusi. That's Vusi in Mbombela. Let me move swiftly to Thulamazulu. Oh, I love the name. Thulamazulu. Good morning to you. You're calling from Kimberley. Talk to me about the police minister very quickly.
Thulasizwe.
Yes.
And AFM listeners. Leader, I know that you are on point with developments in our government, etc. I just want to get some clarity. On Friday, did I hear the new police minister correctly when he said he was not sworn in as the acting police minister, but he was sworn in as the police minister for South Africa?
Yeah, I caught that when Thulamazulu, but to be honest, the detail of it is that for him to be assigned the acting powers of the police ministry, he needed to be a minister, full stop. So he was sworn in as a minister. So whether or not he has these policing powers objectively, he is a minister in the cabinet of President Ramaphosa, who was then immediately assigned the acting powers. So he's acting in relation of the powers at the police ministry, but actually in terms of his appointment substantively, he is a fully fledged minister.
So, Thulas, this brings really a big question in terms of government spending. When the presidency wants to spend another 2-point-something million with all the frills and frills, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you look at the government spending on municipal services, etc., which is the cold face of government service delivery, there's a massive problem.
Absolutely.
There's always no money.
Let's leave it there, Thulamazulu. I don't think you'll find anyone who will argue with you about the size of the cabinet. It's an issue that we've raised over and over again, and now you have another minister that's been added. By the way, and very quickly, the president says if there's this issue of two ministers of police at the same time, he says he doesn't anticipate that will be a situation that lasts very long. So it shouldn't be something that South Africans are concerned about. But the size of the cabinet has been an issue. And you are absolutely right to say another minister has just been added to that bloated cabinet, as some people have said.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. Let's start with rugby. The Bok women are England bound with serious intent after a dominant 41-24 victory over the Black Ferns. Took place in Cape Town, outscoring their opponents by 7 tries to 4. Coach Space de Brain's team has found the perfect balance just 18 days out from the World Cup. Meanwhile, the Griquas staged a stunning second-half comeback to beat Boland 48-39 in a 14-try Currie Cup thriller in Kimberley. Scrum half Caleb Abrams scored twice in quick succession, while fly half George Whitehead kicked 14 points to seal their first win of the season. The Griquas next meet Western Province, while Boland meet the unbeaten Lions. Soccer. The MTN8 semi-final fixtures are confirmed. It's a thrilling showdown. Defending champions Orlando Pirates will face their arch rivals Mamelodi Sundowns, while Stellenbosch FC meet first-time semi-finalists Sekhukhune United. Now, Pirates secured their spot with a 2-0 win over Polokwane City. Sundowns crushing Richards Bay 4-0, and Stellenbosch edging AmaZulu. Here's Stellenbosch FC head coach Steve Barker.
A lot of things that, you're never really 100% sure first game of the season where you're at and what you need to do. So it was good for us to get a competitive game like we did today to just see where we are. And obviously next week a big league match coming up. So a couple of things to work on. But, once again, we're in a semi-final. And we're showing that consistency as a team to be reaching many semi-finals over the last couple of years. So hopefully we can again get ourselves into a final and hopefully go one step further than last season.
Tennis action. Ben Shelton is in the quarterfinals of the National Bank Open. He defeated the number 13 seed Fabio Claboli. Andrei Rublev secured a spot in the quarterfinals of the Toronto Masters after taking down Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, who retired in the third set. Clara Tauson of Denmark upset the second seed Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek of Poland to reach the National Bank Open quarterfinals. And Naomi Osaka booking her place in the quarterfinals of the Canadian Open, beating Anastasia Sevastova. And finally, athletics. Noah Lyles won the 200 meters at the US Track Championship, overtaking Kenny Bednarek and sparking a post-race confrontation. Here's Bednarek.
Like I said before, for years, Noah's going to be Noah. If you want to stare me down, that's fine. But, I ran 5 rounds. He's fresh. He can line up again when we're both fresh and see what happens, because I'm very confident I can beat him. That's all I can say. A little personal stuff, and we'll figure it out. What he said doesn't matter. It's just what he did. That's it. There's not unsportsmanlike shit, and I don't deal with that.
Well, there we go. That's how we'll carry the form into 12:30. Your sports bulletin will come up with John Hedika. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, SACP leader Solly Mapahila has lauded the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi for speaking out about crime syndicates that have allegedly captured politicians, high-ranking police officials and members of the judiciary. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has announced they will conduct weekly physical inspections of infrastructure and service delivery challenges in the province in preparation for the G20 summit. And a 20-year-old woman has been arrested for allegedly strangling her 3-month-old toddler to death at Munjedzi village outside Louis Trichardt in Limpopo. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
In 3, Joburg bound at Heidelberg remains closed. There's quite a heavy backlog through the town centre. It's a crash that's being attended to just before the R42 Nigel exit. So motorists being taken off at the R23 Balfour exit and rerouted up through central Heidelberg. And it's very heavy through there. Also pretty bad again getting into Parktown. If you're coming in from Parkhurst, Parktown North, Linden, Victory Park area, that's all heavy. Also Jan Smuts from the zoo moving up into Rosebank. There's a lot of roadworks around there and major delays. Also pretty heavy getting into Sandton with a crash on Sandton Drive at Mari in the Parkmore area. Behind that, Winnie Mandela back down to Peter Place. Peter Place is slow. Republic Road coming out of Randburg's horrible to get into that Winnie Mandela traffic queue as well. N14 into Pretoria, still queuing up to the Brockfontein interchange. That's on your way in from the R55 Pretoria West exit. Durban crash now on the N2 going northbound by Umgeni Road. So that traffic running through Spaghetti Junction remains heavy. The earlier crash up by Gateway, which has been with us all morning, morning has just been cleared in the last 5 minutes. So if you're stuck in traffic from Queen Nundy Drive, getting up through Kumashi towards that scene, hopefully you'll get a move on. Pietermaritzburg, Ashburton, Camperdown, all looks okay, no problems there. And pretty heavy into Cape Town today with a crash on the side of the highway just by Durban Road in the Belleville area. So very slow coming through from Brackenfell and Kraaifontein. Behind that, the R300 north to get into the N1 pushes a queue back halfway towards Kales River. And some delays out of Tableview this morning. Marine Drive still very heavy down to Racecourse Road in Milnerton, and a crash on Gee Road between Wrights Drive and Parklands Main, causing quite heavy weights both ways there. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Hey, Ndauling, did I see correctly? Is there some disagreement between the National Treasury and the South African Reserve Bank on this 3% issue? It seemed like, the National Treasury didn't like what they read from that statement of the MPC about, making 3% almost like the bull's eye for inflation.
Yeah. That's absolutely right, Thulas. Now, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has put to rest speculation that he'll announce a shift to a 3% inflation target in the upcoming medium-term budget policy statement. So this comes, of course, after the MPC revealed its preference for targeting inflation at 3% at last week's meeting, deviating from that official 3 to 6% range. Godongwana said that any adjustments to the inflation targeting framework will follow a consultation process involving National Treasury, the Reserve Bank, Cabinet, and relevant stakeholders. He further stressed that unilateral announcements won't preempt legitimate policy deliberation. Now, the Reserve Bank's move to target 3% inflation is seen as an attempt to lock in low inflation rates. But of course, critics argue that a 3% target might not accurately reflect the inflation experienced by the majority of South Africans, particularly given the rising costs of essential goods and services. Treasury has expressed broad support for exploring a lower inflation target. I mean, even a few months ago, Deputy Finance Minister David Masondo said that the announcement on the target is imminent. Despite that, Godongwana is still pushing back on that in a statement, saying that talks are still ongoing. That, however, doesn't necessarily stop the SARB from anchoring inflation at 3%. Yeah. Now, as long as Governor Kganyago and, the members of the MPC agree, it's really business as usual for them.
Yeah, in fairness to them, though, I didn't read their statement to be setting policy, but that's just me, and someone might disagree with me. They called it specifically a preference, and I've since heard that they're doing what they're doing with this 3%, what they did with that 4.5% being the midpoint. There's no official policy that says this is the midpoint, but it's a preference, and then they work towards that.
That's absolutely right. But when you really do read the statement and you read between the lines, they're alluding to shifting that target.
Yeah, okay. So it will be interesting to see how that one unfolds, especially as we build up to the medium-term budget policy statement. Tell me about this survey that has revealed that more than half of small businesses are struggling to survive in our economy.
This is according to the Small Business Growth Index, and it's backed by Upside, revealed that local SMEs are facing significant challenges, with 53% of the 1,600 surveyed entities reporting that they're contracting, trading with difficulty, or at risk of closure. Now, rising costs of inputs like transport and raw materials, which have increased by up to 61%, are exacerbating the situation. Only 25% of firms reported growth, while 55% expressed concerns about surviving beyond a year. And to address these challenges, the report recommends grant-based funding for early stage, township and rural businesses, as well as increased access to affordable funding and training for small businesses. Now, Ellen Mukoki, CEO of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, also in support of this, emphasizing the need for lawmakers to provide financing solutions to bridge the demand-supply gap. The support should focus on relieving immediate cash flow stress, enhancing financial literacy, and empowering businesses to invest in growth and resilience.
So lastly then, Dowling, having said everything we've covered this morning, what kind of a trading day can we expect today?
The local markets are on track to start the week mixed following international peers, as they still caution with traders assessing tariff developments, and that has been weighing on the rand as well. But we are seeing a slight recovery this hour at 18.04 to the greenback. Over in the commodities scene, OPEC's latest move to increase production, influencing movements on that front. Initially, oil was under pressure, but there's been an improvement over the last hour. Oil is now at $68 per barrel. And then back to equity markets, US futures in the green. Traders they eyeing more corporate updates. Lastly, in Asia, stocks mostly in positive territory, with investors they also assessing those tariff moves.
All right, Dowling, thank you for that. That's Dowling Lechela, who's kept you updated on all things business, the economy, and the markets throughout the course of the show on this Monday.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus. Anytime, anywhere, no subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
19 minutes to 9. Let's end it off on this tone in terms of the stories we want to bring you. The University of Johannesburg, in partnership with this initiative, aware.org, have launched a community engagement project focused on raising awareness and deepening public understanding of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, FASD, in the country. So this is a problem that's been, it's been with us for quite some time, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And to talk to us about this initiative, I'm joined by Fiona Mahlori, who is Senior Manager, Community Engagement at the University of Johannesburg. Fiona, good morning and thank you for your time. I say it's a problem that's been with us for a while, and I think that's an understatement. Take me through the underlying issue that you are seeking to address in this partnership with AWARE.
Thank you so much for having me, and good morning to the listeners. So as a university, we've launched a project that will be focusing on FASD, the fetal alcohol syndrome. So with this initiative, we hope to raise more awareness, increase education, so that people can make the right decisions to prevent FASD. Our focus will be on females, most actually at childbearing age. Before they decide to start families, it's important that they have this information and the risks associated with consuming alcohol during pregnancy.
And you're doing this because of concern about the levels of prevalence of FASD. Tell me about that.
Yes, indeed. In South Africa, we have some of the highest rates of FASD. And in order to make a difference, we definitely have to increase more awareness. We want people to know what the challenges are associated with FASD. So if you, some statistics have indicated just in South Africa alone, we have about 11% cases of FASD, and sometimes they have even to 31%, which was the highest documented globally.
And how different then is your approach to this as a knowledge sharing and community engagement? targeted, I imagine, and in fact you do say targeted at younger South Africans of childbearing age. How are you approaching it differently such that it's effective without being preachy, without being too official and too, government communication-esque?
Thank you, and thanks for asking that question. How we implementing this project, we're starting with research. We first want to know the understanding and perceptions of women at the childbearing age about FASTI. Do they know about FASTI? How do they come to know about it? Do they know any, even family members? It might not be helpful only to the person who is attending or participating in our programs, but we also want them to spread this knowledge in their families, within their peers, with friends as well, so as to increase and share knowledge that can help people. Why we are starting with younger women at childbearing age, we want to be focused more on prevention because at this stage there is currently no cure for FASTI. So if we can educate more younger people before they start families, we believe that they will, make better decisions. Our research, the baseline research that we're doing, will also assist us to curate the proper intervention models and also understand what sort of engagement women are looking for, and to stay away from, or rather change from how other campaigns are done that are not so effective. We are planning this with the community. We are implementing it with the community to ensure that it addresses their needs.
And then lastly, how important is the participation of the alcohol industry? So AWARE is a non-profit organization and it's funded by the alcohol industry with an attempt at reducing alcohol-related harms. What's your assessment of the importance of involvement of the industry, and is there enough of that, or could we be doing more by way of offsetting the harms related to the product that the industry sells?
And thank you for that as well. The alcohol industry is running our awareness, and most of it through aware.org. You will see during sports matches, especially soccer, AWARE will also be sharing messages of, drinking responsibly, and they have a lot of other programs that address specifically, safe and responsible drinking of alcohol. But with FASTI, there is no established amount of safe drinking. So people who are planning to fall pregnant and those who are already pregnant should not be drinking alcohol. And we definitely need more to be done from the alcohol manufacturers or retailers. They also need to increase the knowledge, the awareness about the dangers of alcohol, specifically for somebody who plans to be pregnant or is pregnant. We've also had cases, of women who are already pregnant that are found in bars, and that should not be allowed. When I say bars, I'm using an example of other drinking places. So they also play a role from the manufacturers to the retailers. It should be a stakeholder engagement. We should come together in order to make sustainable impact.
Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Fiona Mahlore, Senior Manager, Community Engagement at the University of Johannesburg.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Before I take the traffic update, I wanted to read this message. It's quite lengthy, so I don't propose to read all of it. It is from Themba Mokwana, who is in Mbombela. And I read it because, in a way, it brings forth some of the nuances to the conversation we've been having about migration, right? Some of the difficult cases where, how do you deal with some of the instances that Themba is bringing to the fore. So Themba says, I'm a lawyer and often come across cases involving undocumented foreigners whose legal status is quite complicated. I find myself wondering why the South African Human Rights Commission remains silent on these matters, yet it is very vocal when groups like march and march protest against illegal immigrants accessing our hospitals. Then Themba goes on to give me two examples. The first one says, a foreign national was born in Mozambique to a South African father and a Mozambican mother. Under South African law, he is entitled to South African citizenship. However, because his parents did not properly register him, he currently resides in South Africa without lawful documentation. To complicate matters, his South African father has since passed away. You can imagine the complexity that comes with that. The second example from Themba is another foreign national was born in South Africa to a Zimbabwean mother and a South African father, both of whom have since passed on. She attended school here from grade R until she had to drop out in grade 7. Unfortunately, she also lacks proper documentation because her parents never organized it for her. In light of these situations, I wonder, says Themba, what role does the Human Rights Commission play in addressing and mitigating cases like these? And thank you for sharing that, Themba. I do have a bit of experience in that. At university, I was part of the immigration unit at Wits University within the law school. And the cases you are saying resonate. I also encountered a lot of those, that there are a lot of cases that fall into the gray area. You just wish there would be a systemic way of addressing, people whose citizenship status is precarious in this way. I don't know, a commission, I don't want to propose another commission that will cost tens of millions of rand, and Zelma in studio doesn't like that idea at all, but it does seem that something more needs to be done, because these cases that Themba alludes to actually do exist, and they can be caught in the dragnet of people reacting in the way that is happening now against undocumented foreign nationals and their access to public services.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Really heavy getting through the Crown interchange in Joburg this morning. Combination of sheer weight and volume of traffic, plus a crash on the Mike 1 North near Car Street. So coming through from Gold Reef City or coming across the M2 from Benrose side through Joseph Lovo down through Ristic Street and into that Mike 1 to get up towards Braamfontein. It's all very heavy. If you know your local alternatives, it'd be a good idea to get on to those quickly. This morning, still very busy into Rosebank coming across from Parktown North and Parkview. That's all heavy on 6th Street and 7th Avenue. Jan Smuts from the Zoo heading up into Central Rosebank, really bad as well. And there's just some issues getting into Santon after an earlier crash down there on Santon Drive at Murray, just backing things up on Republic and William Mandela. Coming out of Pretoria, a breakdown or a crash at least near Rigel Avenue. So N1 starting to push a queue back towards the Atterbury Road exit as well. Durban, crash on the N2 northbound at Umgeni Road is pretty much being cleared. So there's a little bit of a backlog going through, but it's starting to move better. And the earlier crash that we had at Gateway, also on the N2 North, has also been cleared. And that traffic starting to ease. Been a really busy and heavy morning around Cape Town. Largely back to work Monday, combined with some rainfall. The N1 inbound is heavy this morning from Belleville all the way through to the city centre. The N2's at Robert Sobukwe, the M3 at Constantia, right through to Hospital Bend. And there's just been a crash on the N7 North before Bosmansdam. So that traffic starting to backlog again, coming out of Goodwood, passing that Summer Greens area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This year, the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival presents 3 unforgettable days deep in the art and heart of jazz. From the 26th, 27th and 28th of September, Umu Sankare, Ababemu, Jasmia Horn, Silent No and the Noisemakers, Najbonk Trio, Michelle Ndingio-Jello, Willem Sini, Gabby Mutuba, and over 50 world-class acts will be ready to welcome you and yours to 4 magnificent stages of the Sandton Convention Center. Take me there. Buy your tickets at Ticketmaster now. Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah. So I've sort of been derelict in terms of playing some of your voice notes. So I want to play as many of them as possible. One, someone wants to raise the issue of state capture. Let me hear what that is about.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Good morning to the SAFM listeners. Consequence management should not have eyes. It should not be selectively implemented. Look at the state capture report, for example. We have people who were implicated in the report, but they play a prominent role in our society. Some are even ministers of certain departments. So for me, if we were to fully implement such, we need to implement it holistically, and it should not be selectively implemented. Sewanele Pretoria.
All I can do is put a full stop to that, or perhaps an exclamation mark. Or what do they say in academic writing? IBID. I concur. No one can disagree with what you are saying, as cited from Sogwanel. Someone else wants to talk about smartphones for children.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Good morning to your guest there, and good morning to SAFM listeners. Yeah, Thulas, reflecting to your interview there with the social media lawyer, I'm shocked and devastated because of I personally have a little one that I bought her an iPad, and then I thought that iPad will help her to be more intelligent, more focused, but then we never knew. I think this one, it should be an educational program that it's being implemented so that all the parents, or most of the parents, should know. Thank you very much, Thulas. Thank you. That was an education of the week. This is Joe in Soweto.
Joe, thank you for that. And don't worry, you're not alone. We are all in this together. As I said, I have a 9-year-old where I'm trying to manage and navigate that space that says enough exposure because, we are in the age of technology, but at the same time, not too much exposure. And it is such a struggle to actually keep that in check. You constantly have to work on it almost on a daily basis.
The cell phone thing is a good thing, man. It's almost a literacy that kids need. I don't see a problem with it being, or kids using cell phones. I see a problem where you use it as an absent parent or replacing the parent. That's where the issue is. It's not the phone or the tool, but rather the people using it.
Hi, Thulas. If children are supervised, then screen time should be allowed for educational purposes. On the issue of police, I think everyone must have a friend who switches on the video to record every police interaction with you until you arrive at the police station if you are being arrested. These days, we cannot just trust the man in blue entirely.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you know what I was particularly enthused about? There's been this talk of body cams, introducing body cams. Because honestly, my own view is that everything that police do while on official duty, yes, they can have secret, investigative work. That's a separate category. But when they interact with a civilian at stops and things like those, my own view is that anything they do that they don't want to be subjected to scrutiny, we should move from a presumption that they are hiding something. If you are doing things by the book and you are firm on it, with the authority of a police officer, not worried about doing something irregular or illegal, you should not be worried about being recorded by a civilian or even your actions being caught on camera in the body cam that you're wearing. And I want to be clear, that's separate, of course, from undercover work. That's a different kettle of fish altogether. But if a police officer is interacting with me, what you are doing is exercising a public power that should be subjected to scrutiny. I should have recourse if you treat me badly. And if you believe that you should be hiding and the lights should be switched off, therein lies the problem as far as I'm concerned. Paul in Stellenbosch, good morning to you.
Hi, Thulasizwe. Thank you for taking my call, and also thank you for your show. I listen to it regularly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Very, very competent and enjoyable and stimulating. I just want to respond to the question about exposure to mobile phones of children, which you were just talking about a minute ago. There's a very interesting video on YouTube where a Professor Deborah Davis, she did this back at Melbourne University in 2016, presents, it's a very long video, but it's well worth the watch. It's over an hour, I think. She presents her findings as a scientist about the carcinogenic effect of the pulses between the tower and the phone. And it applies to any Wi-Fi or could apply to an iPad that is directly linked to a mobile network. Okay, but their pulses, which is how the technology works, it's always searching for the next tower, and as it finds it, there's a pulse back, and when that pulse hits your phone, it creates not only heat but also radioactivity. And if you're young people, it applies to adults also, but if you're young people, particularly infants, are sitting in little chairs, on the floor and being entertained by a mobile device that's looking at them, their heads are often exposed to this pulsing. When you're talking on the phone as an adult and you're holding it close to your ear and you're talking for a long time, or you're listening to a voicemail, as you often see people walking down the street just talking all the time, you are basically exposed to that also. She used a very interesting one case example of a lady who used to keep her phone in her bra because she was running around taking her kids to school and all of that. And after, I think, 10 years, she developed breast cancer, and there was a direct link.
Paul, thank you for that. I don't have time to respond at length, but thank you for raising that. What I will do, though, Paul, is bring both perspectives to the fore. I do recall distinctly a few months ago, we had a study that came out that was to exactly the contrary of what you just said. But it does make for a fascinating conversation. That's always been part of what people believe and part of the arguments, the carcinogenic, cancer-causing elements, as well as radiation exposure risks that Paul has spoken to. And I think would benefit from an exposure of both perspectives with authority being cited. That's Paul in Stellenbosch. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of The Morning Brief. Stand by, more quality news, current affairs and talk programming coming your way, starting with The Talking Point immediately after the news at The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlahlana. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane and you've been briefed.
In our top stories, SACP leader praises Mkhwanazi for speaking out against crime syndicates, and Gauteng to conduct inspections of infrastructure in preparation for the G20 summit. Good morning. SACP leader Solly Mapahila has lauded the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi for speaking out about crime syndicates that have allegedly captured politicians, high-ranking police officials